Chapter 840. Originally, the Wizard Alliance had been attacking from all directions, one after another. In an instant, blood was flowing everywhere, and in a few seconds, countless lives were lost on the battlefield. However, after the Wizard Alliance's first retreat, everything changed completely. Their attack pattern had changed to an attack of 50,000 soldiers every single time. After one wave of attacks, the next wave of attacks would follow. They did not insist on taking down the mountain pass immediately, but they presented a situation of endless attrition, slowly depleting Xing Hun's battle strength. The sacrifices were still there, and the battle was still tragic. There were still battles happening in all directions, and there were battles happening all the time at every corner of the border. However, the extreme situation of the actual decisive battle from before had completely disappeared. On the side of the astral souls, the four marshals finally heaved a sigh of relief. This is the normal way of war. The marshals gave orders and adjusted the battle arrangements accordingly. The real purpose of this battle was only known to the four marshals, other than the higher-ups. The others, including the four deputy marshals, were completely unaware. This was an extremely cruel decision. Using tens of millions or even billions of lives as whetstones to create seeds that could reach the peak. Whether it was the Umno Alliance or the Astral Souls, the people who were sacrificed were all unyielding men, and all of them were awe-inspiring men. This decision was so cruel and bloody that it made one's hair stand on end. However, it was decided by the higher-ups of the three continents. Every night, Marshal Dongfang would patrol the barracks and check on the soldiers who were about to go to war. Every minute and every second, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. However, he could not stop them. He had to encourage them. On this morning, the marshals gathered at the Dongfang barracks. Marshal Dongfang held a banquet, and the four of them gathered at the top of the mountain. They were the only ones who attended the banquet. The four of them sat down, and each of them was speechless. This matter now, it's as if I'm sending my brothers to their deaths. The first to speak was Beigong Hao, Marshal Beigong. This rough-looking man had a sorrowful look on his face. I feel guilty. Every time after the war, looking at the long list of names of those who died in battle, it felt as if there were countless knives cutting into their hearts. I've let them down. Shimin Lai gulped down a mouthful of wine. His face was similarly gloomy, and he remained silent for a long time. Nan Zhengxian lowered his head and drank. He did not say anything, but he was panting heavily. Marshal Dongfang's face darkened as he said angrily, "Lower your voice. What are you shouting about? What time is it now? Everything we do now is laying the foundation for the future. Without the baptism of today's bloody battle, how can we deal with the demons that are about to return? If we don't use the current bloody battle to wash away the sand and reveal the true gold, what hope will there be in the future? Do you think I don't know that our brothers have suffered heavy casualties? But there was nothing he could do about it. Have all of you forgotten the tragic situation when the astral souls were weak and became inferior races of the continent? Today's bloody battle and today's efforts are to prevent the astral souls from repeating their old ways. No matter how many sacrifices we have to make, it is only right. Do you think the minister feels good when he formulated such a strategy? He will bear infamy for this for eternity. Are you fucking feeling bad now? I look down on you." Beigong Hao gulped down a large vat of wine. His eyes were bloodshot as he beat his chest with his hands. He growled in a low voice, "I naturally understand the reasons behind this. But the ones who died were my brothers. Can I feel sad when my brothers are dead? Bah, it's not just your brothers who are dead now. Which one of your comrades is not your brother?" Nan Zhengxian glanced coldly at Beigong Hao. "What's wrong? Are you grieving for your brothers to show that you care deeply for them? Or are those dead brothers more important than the survival of the entire continent and the survival of the entire human race? Their deaths were for the sake of passing the difficult times together. Their heroic spirits will not fade away. They will only feel endless glory. Do you need to weep here?" Beigong Hao was stunned. He stopped crying and gulped down large mouthfuls of wine. General Dongfang stood up with his hands behind his back. He said softly, Bei Gong, if this matter was only a secret meeting between the higher-ups, and they did not tell us the truth. If we were only in charge of commanding the battle and did not even know about this agreement, would you still feel so sad? Hearing this, Bei Gong Hao was stunned. Even Shimin Lai was stunned. Both of them said that they understood the logic behind it, but deep down they still could not figure it out. And today, Nan Zhengxian and Dongfang Xingyang were the ones who were trying to convince them. Nan Zhengxian and Dongfang Xingyang were also heartbroken at the loss of so many soldiers. But they had to do this. If I did not know the reason, I would be able to command with ease. I would not feel so sad about the sacrifices. This is the nature of war. It is an unavoidable reality. Bei Gong Hao said sadly. But the biggest problem is that I know now. That's why I feel like I'm betraying my own brothers. This is a necessary process. Nan Zhengxian said calmly. Back then, didn't the seniors sacrifice so much in exchange for the future of the minister, the emperor, and the demon ancestor? Didn't the minister, the demon ancestor, and the others grow up amidst mountains of corpses and seas of blood? That time, to put it bluntly, was the first wave of the venomous insect plan. They used everyone's blood, flesh, and souls in exchange for the top talents who could fight against the great magi and restrain the seven swords. And even more powerful enemies and opponents that we have to face in the future. Even if there was no such plan, this venomous insect plan would still continue. Nan Zhengxian said slowly. It was because of the appearance of the minister and the emperor that they were able to hold on, that the seniors could put down their burdens and stop suppressing their injuries. They fought to their heart's content and passed away. Then I'd like to ask, in fact, each of the seniors could have lived on. According to their cultivation, even if they were defeated by the minister, they were still stronger than us now, right? They could have suppressed their injuries for hundreds or thousands of years. During this time, they might have had the opportunity to recover. Why do they seek death and never return? Nan Zhengxian said lightly. I guess they also thought that they used the blood of humans to create the minister and the others, but they felt guilty in their hearts. That's why they chose the last battle and died in an instant. These words caused the other three people, including great General Dongfang, to feel a chill in their hearts. They thought about the worst time back then. Nan Zhengxian's words were not just highly probable. It was the truth. The minister and the others took advantage of the situation. They used their hands to support the astral souls. From then on, the astral souls had the right to negotiate with the Umno Alliance and the Tao League. Then, there were the Rain Demon, Qin Sha, Saber Spirit, and the others. They appeared. After that, there were the left and right Heavenly Kings and the Baiyin Fairy. They were strong enough to fight against the Grand Magi. And this level is not something that we can understand. However, when a new wave of calamities is coming, isn't it time for another venomous insect plan to start preparing for a rainy day? For this kind of thing, you should be sad and I should be sad. If you don't do it and I don't do it, who will do it? Wait for the return of the Demon Alliance and let the astral souls return to the fate of an inferior race. Nan Zhengxian stared at Dongfang Zhengyang. Bei Gong Hao and Shimin Lai were also deep in thought. Back then, even for us, we had to fight our way out. What's the difference between that and our current situation? Nan Zhengxian said, of the comrades who fought beside us, how many are left now? How many batches of brothers and generations have we endured? If you say that those years of fighting were for our rise, then how many people died for us to rise? Do you have a few 100 million? Nan Zhengxian sneered. When the left and right Heavenly Kings were commanding the battles, didn't they feel sad? But what can they do? This is an inevitable process. They have to send people up. Only by fighting one bloody battle after another could a true powerhouse stand out from the rest. You said that you were sad and couldn't bear to see your comrades die tragically. Are you trying to shirk your responsibility? With your mentality, you were able to reach where you are today because of luck, right? Bei Gong Hao was silent. Nan Zhengxian was right. Even if it wasn't a plan to raise Gu, it was still a plan to raise Gu. Compassionate people don't command troops. Righteous people don't manage finances. Marshal Nan is right. This is an inevitable process. Personal feelings are insignificant in the face of the current situation. General Dongfang heaved a sigh of relief. Then why did you have to let us know? Why didn't you just keep it a secret and let us fight in silence? Bei Gonghao still couldn't understand. Anyway, those who should stand out will stand out. Now that we know the inside story, we feel depressed. It's bad for both sides. It's different now. General Dongfang finally straightened out his thoughts. He glanced at Nan Zhengxian. It seemed like this guy came back from the capital city to teach the three of them. Since Commander Dongfang spoke, Nan Zhengxian didn't say anything else. Because as long as Dongfang Xingyang understood, he would speak more rationally and carefully than him. There was no doubt about that. Among the four great generals, General Dongfang always had the most authority and power. How is it different? Originally, we were only fighting against the UMNO Alliance. Everyone knows what the UMNO Alliance is like. If it weren't for the fact that their physical strength is so strong and their comprehensive strength is far above ours, I'm afraid they would have been destroyed by us in these years. The reason why they can maintain their current state is that there are too few people in the Wizard Alliance who use their brains. Chapter 841. At this point, the four of them laughed at the same time. It was not that Dongfang Xingyang was belittling the UMNO Alliance. Although the UMNO Alliance had produced many excellent commanders in the past few years, the UMNO Alliance had always been confident in their physical strength. Therefore, they would always adopt a more forceful approach during battles. This was a characteristic of their race. Unless there was a huge setback, it would be very difficult to change. However, the Astral Souls was different. The Astral Souls' strategy was to continuously strengthen themselves. At the same time, they came up with countless schemes and plots to increase their strength. However, no matter how many schemes the Astral Souls used to trap the UMNO Alliance's troops, they would still be defeated by the enemy's powerful reinforcements when they gained the upper hand. For example, in the previous encirclement of Dan Kong, victory was already in their grasp. However, the powerful arrival of Great Flood Shaman forcefully broke the encirclement and caused Xing Hun's side to suffer a great loss. And Senior Witch Dan Kong, who was supposed to be killed in the original plan, became the best bait in that battle to some extent. This situation and this result was the most helpless thing the Astral Souls could do. The most fundamental reason for this was that the UMNO Alliance had 12 people who were at the peak of their strength. The Astral Souls did not have enough people to fight against the 12 shamans. However, even though the UMNO Alliance is still our biggest enemy on the surface, we all know that if we only have the UMNO Alliance, the worst outcome would be to maintain the current situation. The two continents would mind their own business. You can't kill me, and I can't kill you. This is the best outcome. We don't have the strength to defeat each other. However, the situation has changed. The Demon Alliance is about to return. This stalemate is over. Everyone knows that the Demon Alliance is not as good as the UMNO Alliance. During the war between the shamans and demons, both sides seem to have suffered heavy losses. However, the UMNO Alliance suffered far more than the Demon Alliance did. That's because the upper echelons of the UMNO Alliance who were below the peak were all killed in that battle. However, the upper echelons of the Demon Alliance who were below the peak were still relatively intact. After the Great War of the Witch-Demon race, the Flood Witch and the others gradually rose to prominence. It could almost be said that the Flood Witch and the others were much later than the seniors of the Great War of the Witch-Demon race. He's a rising star. As for the 10 crown princes, the 10 baleful fiends, and the monster gods of the 365 heavens, I'm sure quite a few of them are still alive. Once the Demon Alliance returns, even if the Demon Emperor doesn't come out, just these fiendish demon gods, I'm afraid that the combined power of our 3 continents won't be able to compare to them. Therefore, we have to cultivate new seeds. At the very least, they have to be peerless geniuses at our level. Or it would be better if they can reach the level of the left and right heavenly kings. If they can reach the level of the Minister Emperor, that would be the best. Moreover, the rising seeds can't be the minority. If only 1 or 2 of them appear, it won't be of any help. Therefore, we have to cultivate at least more than 10 super seeds in this limited time, or even more. People who can compare to the left and right heavenly kings. Only then, with the excellent fighting power cultivated by the Umno Alliance, can we possibly resist the returning Demon Alliance. However, it's only a possibility. Our understanding of the Demon Alliance's fighting power is close to zero, but it's still very little. We really don't have any confidence that we can resist the Demon Alliance. Time is short, and the task is heavy. We can only use the most extreme strategy of cultivating venomous insects. That's why there's a phenomenon. Previously, Skysoar Realm cultivators rarely participated in the battle. However, this time, we've called all of them out, ready to participate in the battle at any time. The most direct reason is that Skysoar Realm cultivators also need to improve. Do you know why the Umno Alliance sent so many Skysoar Realm cultivators to participate in the battle? On one hand, they're protecting the talented seeds. On the other hand, they're hoping to use the pressure of the battle to break through. If they can't improve, it doesn't matter if they fall. Even if they become stepping stones for the enemy, it's still a kind of success for them to break through. From now on, the other two continents are no longer our enemies. They're our allies. Their excellent fighting power will also be our future alliance. General Dongfang said, "This is no longer a matter of astral souls. It's a matter of whether or not the three continents can survive." You didn't mention the Dao Alliance continent just now, Bei Gonghao said meekly. The Dao Alliance continent. A disdainful expression appeared on Dongfang Xingyang's face. They still haven't sent out their armies to participate in the battle. I don't think they're a threat anymore. The reason why the four of us were informed of this is so that we can understand that only when we understand this will we be able to make targeted arrangements. Only then will those prodigies with limitless potential not be sacrificed in vain. Instead, we'll arrange for them to be sent to various places and battlefields to hone their skills. Aside from that, there's another implication. When necessary, the four of us will have to participate in the battle as well. It's best if we can break through to the Dao integration stage like the Heavenly Kings and the others during the battle. This is also one of the reasons why the higher-ups wanted us to know the truth. As for sacrifices, none of us have the heart to do so. However, we have to do this. If we don't even have this bit of willpower and responsibility, then we really don't deserve to be the commander of an army. Dongfang Xingyang pointed at the Sun Moon Pass beneath his feet. Beigong, do you know? Even if we were to dig 100,000 feet into this Sun Moon Pass, the soil below would still be red. Every single one of these souls belongs to the Umno Alliance. There are also astral souls. Let me ask you, which one of them isn't a good man? Aren't they hot-blooded men? Bei Gonghao heaved a long sigh. To be honest, I understand this logic. However, I've been dreaming for the past few nights. I've been dreaming of countless blood-soaked brothers coming to me and asking me. They're asking me, we're fighting with our lives on the line. Are we fighting with our lives on the line just so that you can join forces with the Umno Alliance? Are we just doing this so that the higher-ups of the two continents can drink together and watch the show? Are the lives of our lowly soldiers not lives? Only the lives of the higher-ups are lives. How dare you? Dongfang Xingyang roared in rage. Beigong, your thinking is wrong. What's wrong? What's wrong with the higher-ups coming up with a strategy? What's wrong with drinking together? Is the purpose of their gathering to drink together? For their own selfish desires? Isn't it for the survival of the entire human race and the Wu people? Since we've stepped onto the battlefield, we should have been prepared to sacrifice ourselves long ago. Soldiers, generals, and commanders are the same. Everyone's life is a life. The only difference is the value of the sacrifice. If we can use our sacrifice to exchange for the long-term peace between the Umno Alliance and the Astral Souls, an eternal alliance, and for the higher-ups to drink together every day without any wars, then I, Dongfang Xingyang, am willing to die right now. This concerns the entire human race. All kinds of sacrifices must be made. Great Commander Dongfang took a deep breath and said, Bei Gonghao, Shimen Lai, if the two of you still hold such thoughts in your hearts, then you will not be able to command this long and drawn-out battle of raising goo. I will report this to the minister and the emperor, and replace the two of you." Baegonha took a deep breath. "I won't. I want to stay here and personally command this goo cultivation battle." "Me too." Great Marshal Shimin Lai lowered his head and sighed deeply. Although the two of them had thought it through, they were more emotional than Nan Zhengxian and Dongfang Xingyang. Both Dongfang Xingyang and Nan Zhengxian were iron-blooded commanders. They were the perfect example of how to be merciful and not lead an army. As for Baegonha and Shimin Lai, although they could give all kinds of cruel orders without any expression, they would always feel uncomfortable after the war. But this didn't stop them from becoming qualified commanders. This was the difference in temperament. It was inevitable. Let's go back. In the end, even if this plan didn't exist, since the ancient times, which war wasn't a war to raise venomous insects. As long as someone stood out, it would be a war to raise venomous insects. Which war didn't have someone standing out from nowhere? After thinking through this, it doesn't matter if we feel uncomfortable or not. Dongfang Xingyang raised his cup and sighed softly. "Don't take it to heart. Maybe it won't be long before it's our turn to fight with our lives on the line. If we're lucky and die on the battlefield, we could go to hell and apologize to our brothers." He smiled bitterly. It's a pity that even that day might not come. Hearing this, the three commanders were all sad. They didn't say anything for a long time. Dongfang Xingyang was right. When it came to cultivators of their level, 99% of them would self-detonate together with their souls and divine senses. The so-called wanting to go to the underworld and apologize to his brothers was really an extravagant hope. They couldn't do it, and with their status, they were destined to perish on the battlefield. Dying on the bed was not something they could accept. That was why Dongfang Xingyang said, "If we're lucky, we can die on the battlefield." The death here was an extremely rare way to die, because in order to do that, one needed to be very, very lucky. One had to meet an enemy that they couldn't fight against, who didn't even give them a chance to self-detonate. That was the only way to do it. The fierce battle at the border was still going on. The reporters from General Zhu's company also formed 4 groups and went to the border to interview the soldiers. Chapter 842. The TV was constantly broadcasting the tragic battle scenes at the border. Shi Yunfeng's movies and TV series were also broadcast every night. At this moment, the Astral Souls continent was in an unprecedented state of excitement. As for hidden dragon Gao Wu, in this boiling atmosphere, his reputation was like an inflated balloon, blowing directly to the peak. Hidden Dragon High School's reputation had completely surpassed Yunwan High School and Ancestral Dragon High School, becoming the world's #1 high school in reality. The Martial Teaching Department issued an order to all the high schools to expand their enrollment. Yunwan High School and Ancestral Dragon High School would expand their enrollment by 2 times. Hidden Dragon High School would expand their enrollment by 3 times. The day the order was issued, the surrounding areas of Hidden Dragon High School were all assigned to Hidden Dragon High School. From that day onwards, construction would begin. The expansion must be completed before the arrival of the new students next year. Zhua Xiaoduo's villa was also assigned to the school's buildings. Although it was just the beginning and construction would still take some time, Zhua Xiaoduo still felt that the world was developing too fast. It was so fast that it was a little scary. On this day, Li Chenglong officially advanced to the cloud transformation realm after sparring with Zhua Xiaoduo. After a night of smooth transition, he went to school the next day with a swagger. Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Meng Zhongjun, and the others also broke through in these 2 days. The total number of cloud transformation realm martial artists in Hidden Dragon High School's first class broke through 30. Hidden Dragon High School became the place with the most cloud transformation realm martial artists among the 3 high schools. Yunwan High School and Ancestral Dragon High School added together were not enough to reach this number. Moreover, these cloud transformation realm students of Hidden Dragon High School were all geniuses who had been suppressed at least 7 or 8 times. When Xing Tian, who had confirmed the status of the students, woke up laughing several times in his dreams. But because of this, when Xingtian's work pressure increased greatly. Every day, he had to accompany these new Cloud Transformation Realm students to spar. Even though when Xingtian was already at the peak of the Royal God Realm, he was still completely exhausted and almost unable to continue. When Xingtian had a vague feeling that there might be a student in his class who had surpassed him before the end of the first grade. This knowledge made Wen Xingtian both happy and distressed. At that time, if a teacher in charge like me gets beaten up by a student, that would be too embarrassing. Because of this, he even went to Yi Chongqing to complain about it several times. Yi Chongqing was also at his wit's end. Who would have thought that this batch of students would be so monstrous? After teaching so many martial arts students for so many years, it was extremely rare for a nascent soul cultivator to appear in the first grade. In the end, there were dozens of Huayuans in this batch of students who had been enrolled for half a year. Not to mention, there were also big freaks like Zhuo Xiaoduo and Li Chenglong. If they continue to advance at this rate, won't they reach the Skysoar realm by the time they enter their 4th year? Yi Chongqing was also feeling troubled. Think about it. Currently, the highest cultivation level of the Hidden Dragon High School students was Yi Chongqing, who was at the peak of the nascent Profound realm. Even if Yi Chongqing's illness was cured and his cultivation level increased considerably, he would only reach the Skysoar realm at most. Even if Xiang Quangren, Cheng Gaiying, and Lu Yichun were included, they would only have 4 Skysoars. When Xingtian and the others were still in the process of being suppressed by the peak of the Royal God realm. Even if they broke through, they would only reach the nascent Profound realm. If a few Skysoars appeared at once, the scene could only be described as too beautiful. Yi Chongqing called department head, went to complain about this matter. Department head when only asked one thing. Yi Chongqing, are you showing off in front of me? Or are you showing off to me? Then he hung up the phone. Yi Chongqing couldn't help but touch his face. Could it be that he was showing off just now? I don't feel anything. Haha. No, for the sake of dignity, I have to work harder. At the very least, I have to raise my cultivation level to the Skysoar realm. As for the other teachers and vice principals, work hard. I don't care about them anymore. I have to make sure I don't lose face as a principal first. Li Chenglong, who was temporarily consolidating his cultivation level, started his work in the school. Gao Xiaoer was also running around the school, busy with her pile of work. Zhuo Xiaoduo, on the other hand, was continuously improving his cultivation. He wanted to be able to suppress at least 40 times before he could break through to the Cloud Transformation realm. Zhuo Xiaoyan was also working hard. She wanted to suppress at least 40 times before she could break through to the Royal God realm. She was determined not to let Xiao go to catch up to her. Zhuo Xiaoyan was well aware of his own limitations. If he really allowed Zhuo Xiaoduo to surpass him in terms of battle prowess, he was afraid that this brat would immediately show off in front of him. After being beaten up for so many years, he would probably use a different method to get back at her even more severely. Zhuo Xiaoyan would definitely not allow such a situation to happen. She would definitely put an end to it. You're just a younger brother. Forever a younger brother. You can take advantage of me, but that's only when I'm willing. If I'm not willing, I can suppress you with force at any time. If he really surpassed her, she could only reject him by acting coquettishly, crying, shedding tears, or getting angry. Zhuo Xiaoyan felt that she was not a big sister at all. Therefore, Zhuo Xiaoyan was also desperately compressing her vital energy and improving her cultivation level. She was so desperate that Zhuo Xiaoduo wanted to find a chance to be intimate with her. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan did not have the time. She completely ignored him and was always working hard to improve her cultivation. In the Tower of Emptiness, a small house was sealed by an ancient, mysterious ice. Zhuo Xiaoyan was inside. She was using the best quality jade of astral souls to help her improve bravely. With the help of the ice soul, Zhuo Xiaoyan's cultivation was advancing by leaps and bounds. Zhuo Xiaoduo was helpless and could only work harder on her cultivation. Unfortunately, there was a Xiao outside. Whenever Zhuo Xiaoduo was not around, it would start to call out anxiously. She had to appear from time to comfort this little thing and maintain the relationship between mother and son. She had to mention it. Xiao, this little thing, grew really fast. In just a few days, its fluffy body had completely disappeared. Although its 3 legs were still very thin, it could stand firmly and powerfully. Slowly, it began to show its original appearance. This was its original appearance. At least, when Zhuo Xiaoduo first saw it, she was speechless. This is not a chick. It's really a crow. If there was a difference between this crow and an ordinary crow, it would be that this crow had 3 legs and there were faint dark golden stripes all over its body, from its forehead to its claws. Also, it had a huge appetite. It was really huge. Also, its speed was amazing. It could cover a distance of 1,000 meters with just a flap of its wings. It was as fast as crossing space. So Xiaoduo often sighed. The royal family was really different. They were so strong from the moment they were born. What surprised Xiaoduo was Zhao's other talent. No matter what kind of energy it was, it could absorb it. No matter what kind of energy it was, it could absorb it. Of course, when it reached Xiao Luo's body, it would naturally turn into heat energy. As it absorbed more and more energy, Zhao's body became stronger and stronger. Now it could spit out a fireball from its mouth. So Xiaoduo brought in a large piece of ordinary steel from outside. Xiao spat out a mouthful of fire, and the steel plate, which was more than 10 centimeters thick, melted into a bowl-like hole. Seeing such power, Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked. Could it be that the 3-legged golden crow's cultivation progress was so fast? How many days had it been? However, Xiao probably had a childlike desire to show off. As long as it felt that it had made a little progress, it couldn't wait to show off in front of Zhuo Xiaoduo. After showing off, it flew to Zhuo Xiaoduo's palm. It flapped its wings and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo with its big black eyes, waiting for praise. Zhuo Xiaoduo was not stingy with his compliments. Then, Xiao Xiao was so happy that it flew up to the sky and down to the ground. Zhuo Xiaoduo was dumbfounded and gasped in amazement when he saw Xiao Xiao flying at an extremely fast speed in the sky. It was as though a black line was drawing a spider web in the sky. In any case, it was the 7th prince who used to command the heroes. How could it be like this? Did it get the disease of not feeling good about showing off? Praise it, wow. Xiao is really amazing. It can actually fly and shout happily for half a day. So, Zhuo Xiaoduo started to record it. Every time before Xiao showed off, he would record it. Then, when Xiao was excited, he would fly. All kinds of stupid flying, including all kinds of stupid actions, were clearly recorded by Zhuo Xiaoduo, the unscrupulous mother. If Wu Yuding was here, she would probably say, like mother, like son, this son is like me. When Zhuo Xiaoduo was young, he felt that he seemed to have grown something more than Sister Nian, so he cried and made a fuss. At night, he grabbed his penis with one hand and used a pair of scissors to cut it off. The whole process was recorded by Wu Yuding, and she almost laughed herself to death. Later, it was Zhuo Chonglu who taught his son a lesson and stopped that dangerous idea. Otherwise, a new generation of eunuchs would really be born. Zhuo Xiaoduo held the camera and focused on recording. When you regain your memory in the future, if you dare to argue with me, an elder, I will scatter this video all over the world. I even thought of the name, the 7th prince of the monster clan's stupid childhood. Let me edit 1,000 episodes for you first. Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed as he recorded. In the end, he directly installed the camera and let the machine record it by itself. He would only be responsible for editing. Every time Zhuo Xiaoduo edited, Xiao would stand on Zhuo Xiaoduo's shoulder and watch attentively. When he saw himself appear on the screen, he would shout excitedly. Zhuo Xiaoduo, of course, would not let go of this opportunity and recorded together. At the same time, Qin Fangyang, who had successfully broken through the bottleneck and officially advanced to the mysterious returning level, entered Ancestral Dragon High School. Ancestral Dragon High School had expressed great importance to Qin Fangyang's entry. After all, Qin Fangyang was now famous. Just the title of Zhuo Xiaoduo's mentor was enough. Who was Zhuo Xiaoduo? He was the common boss of all the nascent soul geniuses who entered the Crown Prince's school. He was definitely a peerless genius of the generation. Chapter 843. Based on this, Qin Fanyang's importance was immediately highlighted. Not to mention Li Chenglong, Wan Li Xiu, Long Yusheng, Li Changming, and Yu Moyan were all Qin Fanyang students. It could be said that the treatment Qin Fanyang received at Ancestral Dragon High School was better than any of the other teachers. This made Qin Fanyang feel very embarrassed. A teacher's status was valued because of his disciple that he was really ashamed, but why did he feel so proud of himself? At the entrance of the hidden Dragon High School villa area, Wu Taijiang, who had not been seen for a long time, quietly appeared in front of the villa door. When he was at the door, he remembered the king of Zhuolu's instructions. Little junior brother has already received the teachings of master and mistress. He must have too many rare materials that he hasn't handed over. If you have time, go and take a look. Don't let him waste them. Persuade him to donate those that he doesn't need. If there's anything that he can use, he definitely can't handle it himself. Please help him, Uncle Master Wu. After all, you have a better relationship with him. It had to be said that Wu Taijiang was very pleased with this argument. Although Wu Taijiang and the others' cultivation was not as high as the left and right heavenly kings, they were older and had known Zhuo Changlu and the others for a long time. After they met, they called each other brothers. Therefore, the left and right heavenly kings were a generation younger because of their birth. What made the left and right heavenly kings the most uncomfortable was that they were clearly older than these people, but they had to call them uncle. This was the most unpleasant thing. However, Wu Taijiang and the others were thick-skinned and refused to come down from their uncle's position. They refused to say, "Let's talk about our own matters no matter what." Wu Taijiang understood very well. Look at General Dongfang and the others. They were too loose with their mouths and said, "Let's talk about our own matters." In the end, they were taught a lesson by the left and right heavenly kings, especially Nan Zhengxian and Bai Gonghao. All these years, the scapegoats for Yu Dantian were too many to count, that with so many examples. How could Wu Taijiang be willing to let go of his mouth? If I don't let go, I'm the elder. He was determined not to loosen his grip on the pine tree. Therefore, when the left and right heavenly kings saw Wu Taijiang, they kept their distance and ran faster than anyone else. However, when Wu Taijiang received the news, he rushed over immediately. He also wanted to see how this young and tender fellow from back then was now. Was he still as despicable as his father? So what if he had inherited the skills of Zhuo Changlu and Wu Yuding? Inside the Tower of Annihilation, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan were engaged in their 396th battle. Before this, Zhuo Xiaoduo had already been cruelly tortured 395 times. The current situation of the battle was still extremely tragic. Every time Zhuo Xiaoduo felt that he had improved, he would go over and flirt with her. Then, he would naturally spar with her. Then, he would be beaten down and come back to teach her a lesson. Then, he immersed himself in cultivation once more. He felt that he had comprehended and made progress again. So he went over to provoke her once more. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan improved very quickly. While Zhuo Xiaoduo had comprehended, Zhuo Xiaoyan also had the corresponding comprehension in the battle. There was no difference in their strengths, but they were improving together. As a result, Zhuo Xiaoduo's challenge was purely a journey of abuse. However, he never got tired of it, just like how he would not feel comfortable if he was not beaten up every day. After being beaten up, he would try to take advantage of her. His face was full of melancholy and sadness. Coupled with his bruised and swollen face, he would ask for compensation. For example, kissing, touching, and dancing. "I've been beaten up so badly. Kissing is not too much, right? I've been beaten up so badly by you. Touching is a must, right? Dancing for me is not too much, right?" So Xiaoyan was also very helpless about this, but he was also vaguely happy about it. Therefore, every time Xiaoduo was beaten up, the winner would have to compensate the loser. Well, this compensation was very erotic. This kind of harassment became more and more frequent, and the request became more and more strange. So Xiaoduo would never be rash. In order to achieve some unspeakable goals, He even wasted precious cultivation time to arrange all the dances, from folk dances to modern dances, too. Some dances step by step in a strict order. It was not a step by step, but an inch by inch. It was flawless, without a single flaw. He must not arouse Zhuo Xiaoyan's vigilance. This was the most important thing. Even if the most professional dance instructor were to come, he would only exclaim from the bottom of his heart, "There's not a single mistake in this sequence." It was more rigorous than a textbook. He would definitely copy it immediately and take it back as a textbook for teaching. Zhuo Xiaoyan was completely unaware of this. In her eyes, every new dance was basically no different from the previous one. Besides, it was only in front of little doggy, and it was in the Tower of Emptiness that Zhuo Xiaoyan did not have any scruples. Dance, just dance for him to see. During this period of time, he was really pitiful after being beaten up by me. Therefore, Zhuo Xiaoyan's goal was getting closer and closer. He had a plot to achieve it little by little, inch by inch. A certain ultimate goal. Zhuo Xiaoyan did not notice it at all. On the contrary, she was enjoying it. Even when she was free from cultivation and Zhuo Xiaoduo did not disturb her, she would secretly watch the videos that she had collected before to watch and criticize the dances. Then, she would choose to practice. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan sternly warned herself in her heart. Practice is practice. But after practice, she could not just dance casually. She would need little doggy to beg her for a long time. All those Zhuo Xiaoyan knew that sooner or later, Zhuo Xiaoduo would coax her to dance for him. But she would not give in so easily. In this way, Zhuo Xiaoyan was unaware of Zhuo Xiaoduo's routine. She was willing to enjoy it, step by step. And every time, she felt that she was the winner. It had to be said that Zhuo Xiaoduo had definitely put in a lot of effort into this plan. At this time, there were countless green gas floating in the air of the Tower of Emptiness. Each of them drifted with the wind, changing into various shapes. Occasionally, there was a dragon spirit floating around. Of course, these were the gains from the Crown Prince's Academy. Xiaolong had spent a lot of effort to disperse and collect the qi of the ley line and the qi of the dragon vein. In this experience, the one who worked the hardest was definitely not Zhuo Xiaoduo, but Xiaolong. It could be said that Xiaolong used all his strength to disperse and transport all the ley lines and dragon veins in the nascent soul area. This time, Zhuo Xiaoduo really did not treat Xiaolong unfairly. Often, when Xiaolong was tired, he would generously give him 2 deity. This was not considered his salary, but just his usual bonus. Therefore, not only did Xiaolong recover from his fatigue, but he also made progress. After digesting, he worked even harder. If he did not work, he would be letting Boss down. Boss is really too good to me this time. Under Xiaolong's desperate efforts, in 2 months, Xiaolong collected more than 100 ley lines and 5 scattered dragon veins. He really swept away all the ley lines and dragon veins in the nascent soul area. And the most direct result of this was that there was not enough Astral Soul's jade powder. It was seriously not enough. Even after Zhuo Xiaoduo came out and collected a huge amount of Astral Soul's jade powder, it was still far from enough to meet the demand. The ley lines that Xiaolong had just transported in were essentially the ley lines of the demon clan. They were fundamentally different from the previous ley lines and could not be integrated into the space of the Tower of Emptiness. It would take a long time to assimilate all of them individually. It might take 100 years, or even 1,000 years. It would take at least a few tens of thousands of years to assimilate all of them into the array. Fortunately, Zhuo Xiaoduo still had the Heaven Repairing Stone. During this time, the Heaven Repairing Stone had been compressing and condensing the mountain range. As long as a mountain range that belonged exclusively to the space of the Tower of Emptiness was rebuilt, it would naturally be able to completely accommodate the rest of the ley lines. And if all the ley lines of the Demon Clan were integrated in one go, it would be able to form a complete super ley line that belonged exclusively to the space of the Tower of Emptiness. And the 2 ley lines were connected, and over the years, they would naturally integrate. So Xiaoduo, who got this knowledge through Xiaolong, was very happy and had a headache. Fortunately, in the space of the Tower of Emptiness, the ley line chi would not disappear. Every day, it would float in the sky. During this time, Xiaolong would constantly appear and break up all the ley lines. After that, as long as there was a sign of integration, he would immediately break up the ley lines. After all, these ley lines of the demon clan were essentially the same and easy to integrate. The reason why Xiaolong was so active was that he was worried. With so many ley lines of the same attribute fusing, what if another dragon of fate appeared? With so many ley lines of the same attribute fusing together to form a dragon of fate, it was not a joke. Xiaolong would never allow another existence, like himself, to compete for favor. He must completely eliminate this possibility and make it impossible for it to exist. Boss can only be mine. Only I can eat boss's deity. Therefore, Xiaolong could only look at Zhuo Xiaoduo, hoping that he would hurry up and bring in more Astral Soul's jade powder. Unfortunately, Zhuo Xiaoduo was also helpless. He had really done his best to collect the Astral Soul's jade powder. Not to mention the Astral Soul's jade powder he had collected from Old Sun. The secret area of the woman in white outside the city had collected a lot of Astral Soul's jade powder. With such a large amount of Astral Soul's jade powder, it was still not enough. What else could he do? Fortunately, the original mountain range had been compressed to a quarter of its original size by the Heaven Mending Stone, and it was still being compressed. It was estimated that after a period of compression, it would be able to take shape. Now, the new mountain range was just a prototype. The veins that ran from east to west were very long, but as a whole, they were only 2 to 3 meters high. With such a scale, how could they hide the ley lines? In the end, the growth of the independent ley lines of the Tower of Emptiness was still a painstaking effort. It would take a long time to succeed. It was difficult to form an independent ley line in a short period of time, but Zhuo Xiaoduo did not deny Xiaolong's efforts this time, nor was he stingy. Chapter 844. In addition to the usual 12 drops of salary, Zhuo Xiaoduo also gave him an extra bonus. The first time, he gave him 18 drops. After Xiaolong digested them, he generously gave him another 20 drops. Then, he gave him 20 drops 3 times in a row, a total of 110 drops. Xiaolong was so happy that he felt like he was going to die. He originally thought that he was lucky enough to get 80 drops. He did not expect his boss to be so generous this time. Could it be that he was biased about his boss? When it came to the last 20 drops, Xiaolong had some indigestion. Even though it was a little indigestion, the little dragon still tried its best to swallow it all. Then, it turned all of it into fate chi and kept it in its mouth. I don't eat. I keep them in my mouth. I keep boss's drops in my mouth every day. I'm happy. I'm happy. I can't give up such a good boss to others. All the drops are mine. I'm a dragon. But I can't say enough that Xiaolong's body size doubled at a speed visible to the naked eye. Furthermore, its overall form had been increased by 2 times. If not, how could he disperse so much chi of the earth line so easily? He could even do it at will now. Now, Xiaolong basically had nothing to do. He definitely did not need to go out to collect earth lines in a short period of time. There were too many earth lines in the Tower of Annihilation. If he went out to collect more, it would really be a mess. Well, it was not right to say that Xiaolong had nothing to do. If Xiaolong did not suppress the space of the Tower of Annihilation, the earthline chi would easily get entangled. Xiaolong had to pay attention at all times to disperse the entangled earthline chi at any time. So Xiaoduo was really worried now. The prototype of the independent earthline of the Tower of Annihilation had been set up. The foundation was already set. There was so much earthline chi, but it lacked the Astral Soul's jade powder. Hurry up and send a large batch. Send a large batch. As long as all the earth lines were digested, the efficiency of the Tower of Annihilation would at least increase by 4 or 5 times. What would it mean to increase by 4 or 5 times? Now, 2 months in the Space Exterminating Pagoda was only 1 day and 1 night outside. If it was increased by 5 times, then 1 day outside would be almost a year inside the Tower of Annihilation. To complete a year's worth of cultivation in 1 day, What kind of concept was that? It was even sharper and more dazzling than a certain small house. Whether it was the improvement of his own strength, so Xiaoyan's strength, or Zhao's strength, that all of them would be of great help. Sister, how many times have you suppressed it now? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked Zhuo Xiaoyan. 33 times. Zhuo Xiaoyan sighed. She felt that her suppression was coming to an end. She was afraid that she would not be able to reach her goal of 40 times. The Ice Spirit and Xiaoduo helped her to suppress it, but they only helped her to suppress it 7 more times. I estimate that I can only suppress it for another 3 times before I have to make a breakthrough. Zhuo Xiaoyan snorted, his face full of displeasure. What about you? Me? Haha, I've suppressed it for 36 times now. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled proudly. And I feel that I can suppress it for another 5 times. It won't be a problem. Zhuo Xiaoyan stomped her feet. Now, it was actually possible for her to be suppressed by him, and it was more than 5 times. If they were at the same level, wouldn't she be bullied to death by him? Let's go out and get some fresh air. Zhuo Xiaoyan sighed. Cultivation was something that determined a person's strength. It cannot be faked. No matter how unwilling she was, it was still a fact. Sigh, it seemed that if he really caught up to her, it would be fine as long as he didn't catch up to her before she reached the Skysoar realm. Mom said that when she reached the Skysoar realm, she could know. What was she thinking? Even if she reached the Skysoar realm, she couldn't let him catch up to her. At most, she would dance for him when the time came. Okay, although only 1 day and 1 night had passed in the outside world, 2 months had passed in the space exterminating tower. It was a good thing to improve their cultivation, but they couldn't always cultivate. The 2 of them were a little bored from cultivating. They couldn't help but leave the annihilation tower hand in hand. As soon as they came out, they frowned. Both of them felt that. There seemed to be an iron tower in front of the villa. More importantly, this aura was familiar to them. Zhuo Xiaoyan said uncertainly, "It's similar to Uncle Wu's aura." It's him. Zhuo Xiaoduo had already rushed out. "Uncle Wu, why did you come to see me?" Zhuo Xiaoduo shouted with an indescribable excitement. Zhuo Xiaoyan hurriedly went out to greet him. Zhuo Chonglu and his wife had taught them to respect their elders. Moreover, Wu Taijiang had helped him a lot. Wu Taijiang had been standing in front of the villa for 2 hours. There was no one at home, so he knew it with his divine sense. However, he didn't have anything to do. He just stood in front of the villa and enjoyed the scenery. Wu Taijiang's cultivation was above the sky realm. He was the top cultivator of the astral souls. Grandma Sure was frightened by his presence. Why was there such a terrifying master here? What was he trying to do by standing in front of the villa? She quickly made a phone call. In an instant, Yi Changqing and the others flew over. Among them, Yi Changqing recognized Wu Taijiang. Yi Changqing was flattered by the title of the continent's #1 divine blacksmith. When he saw Wu Taijiang standing here, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Venerable Wu, why are you here? Please come in and have a seat." "It's okay. I came here to visit my nephew and niece." "I didn't mean to disturb you. Unfortunately, they weren't at home. You don't have to worry about it." Wu Taijiang smiled. "All right, my identity is still a secret from them." "Understood." When Yi Changqing heard this, he couldn't help but feel that the words nephew and niece were like spring thunder. He immediately confirmed Zhuo Xiaoduo's identity and couldn't help but be shocked. Previously, it was just a guess and he wasn't sure. But now, with Wu Taijiang's arrival, it was basically clear. In this world, how many people could be called nephew and niece by Wu Taijiang, and even take the initiative to visit? How could his identity not be exposed? This was already a bald man on a louse's head. It was obvious. Yi Changqing and the others quickly left, and Grandma sure could finally rest assured. Wu Taijiang was still waiting quietly at the entrance of the villa. Looking at the withered trees and the elegant scenery of the villa, he couldn't help but nod his head in satisfaction. Not bad. This place is quite suitable for opening a blacksmith shop. Finally, that the auras of Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan appeared in the villa. Then, he heard Zhuo Xiaoduo's cheers. Wu Taijiang's face immediately revealed an amiable smile. It had really been a long time since they last met. Then, he saw a tall young man jumping out. His facial features were still the same as the Xiao young man he saw in Phoenix City, but his height and his body were much bigger. His face also had a more mature look, but that strange temperament was still engraved in his bones. When Wu Taijiang first saw Zhuo Xiaoduo, Zhuo Xiaoduo's height was less than 1.8 meters. Now he was already 1.89 meters tall, more than 10 centimeters taller. Compared to his height, his body was a little thin, but he already had the posture of a bottomless abyss in a mountain. This was the natural density of his aura caused by years of hard practice with 1,000 Souls nightmare hammer. Xiao Duo you. Ha ha ha. Wu Taijiang laughed and greeted. Zhuo Xiaoduo's face immediately darkened. Can you not call me Xiao Duo you? This was a name that he had not heard for a long time. Whether it was his mother or sister, no one had called him that for a long time. Xiaoyan is also here. It's so good to see you too. Wu Taijiang laughed loudly, but in his heart, he was even more shocked. When he saw Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan in Phoenix City, Zhuo Xiaoyan was only in the embryonic breathing realm, while Zhuo Xiaoduo had just reached the innate realm and was just at the beginning of the martial arts path. Now, looking at them now, both of their cultivation had greatly increased, which made Wu Taijiang, an almighty, shocked. Zhuo Xiaoyan had completed the condensation of her spirit and qi. Obviously, she had completed the condensation of her godly soul and reached the god reigning realm. In terms of cultivation realm, she was still lacking, but her godly soul had completed the condensation. When she really reached the god reigning realm, there would definitely be more improvement. As for Zhuo Xiaoduo, his face was full of purple qi, and between his movements, there were faint flashes of cloud qi. This was the cloud transformation realm? But if he had reached the cloud transformation realm, how could he not control the evolution of vital qi? Could it be that he was about to break through to the cloud transformation realm? But why was there already overflowing cloud qi? But it had not been long since the last time they parted, right? Had been a year? These two monsters had actually improved so quickly. They were indeed raised by those two monsters. Zhuo Xiaoduo had already rushed up and grabbed Wu Taijiang's big hand. Uncle Wu, please come in quickly. Why are you here? It's really been a long time. I've missed you so much. Zhuo Xiaoyan hurriedly brewed tea and brought it over. She sat quietly beside Zhuo Xiaoduo and poured tea for both of them, just like a housewife. The three of them sat down, and the fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. It's good to see both of you. When I was wandering outside, I often missed both of you. Wu Taijiang laughed and said, as for this visit, a while ago your father called me and asked me to come over to take a look, afraid that you would waste any materials. He wanted to say your senior brother, but he remembered that Zhuo Xiaoduo probably did not know about the existence of such a senior brother. Anyway, Zhuo had already gone back. Borrowing his name, not only would he be able to help his disciple, but he would also be able to help his son. No matter what, he would not be invited to a meal anymore. My father? Zhuo Xiaoyan immediately became interested. Uncle Wu, when did my father call you? About a month ago. Wu Taijiang thought for a while and said, at that time, I was still working as a blacksmith in another place. A month? Chapter 845. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan looked at each other with some doubts in their hearts. They didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. It should be another plan that their parents had made in advance. Zhuo Xiaoduo felt that he understood. Dad must have known his temper and was certain that he would be able to obtain a lot of good things in the trial space. However, his knowledge was limited and he didn't have the skills to do so. That was why he asked Wu Taijiang to come over and help him. The only thing he was slightly puzzled about was how his parents knew that they had entered the trial space. This matter seemed to have already started the selection before they left. I didn't remember this wrong, right? Zhuo Xiaoduo turned his head and said to Zhuo Xiaoyan with a sigh, our dad really has a meticulous plan. He planned it out before taking action. Zhuo Xiaoyan rolled her eyes and said, it's one thing for our dad to have a meticulous plan, but it's another thing for him to know your bad nature very well. In front of Uncle Wu, can't you leave me some face? Zhuo Xiaoduo said seriously. Hurry up and get some fruit. Do you need me to say such a small thing? There are guests in the house. Don't you know how to be polite? What kind of wife are you? Hurry up. If you're late, I'll beat you to death. Zhuo stood up angrily and went to get the fruit. Zhuo Xiaoduo sat on the sofa reservedly and put on the aura of the head of the house. He chuckled and said, I've embarrassed myself in front of Uncle Wu. Let me formally introduce her again. And this is my wife. Ha ha. Wu Taijiang almost spat out a mouthful of tea. Your wife, I know about this, and I've known about it for a long time. Look at how arrogant you are, as if I don't know about your family status. Zhuo Xiaoyan came out with the fruit. Uncle Wu, please have some fruit. Zhuo Xiaoduo put on airs again. Why didn't you peel the skin? You're so insensible. Hurry up and peel the skin for me. Peel it clean. Zhuo Xiaoyan took a deep breath. Zhuo Xiaoduo quickly grabbed one and stuffed it into his mouth. Forget it. It's more nutritious to eat it with the skin on. Wu Taijiang was stunned for a moment, and then couldn't help but laugh out loud. After eating a sun-facing fruit, he asked, How is it? Do the two of you have any ingredients that you're not sure about, or can't confirm? Why don't I take a look at you? Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes lit up. Thank you so much, Uncle Wu. We were just worried about this. Wu Taijiang nodded with a smile. He thought to himself that the king of Zhuolu was right. This pair of siblings had really pocketed a lot of money. There's no hurry. Uncle Wu, you must be tired after traveling so far. Have some tea and some fruit first, Zhuo Xiaoduo said politely. All right, Zhuo Xiaoyan asked curiously. Uncle Wu, you're so close to my parents. My parents didn't use their current names before they experienced the mortal world, right? Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo were really puzzled about this. Recalling the past, the bits and pieces of the past, and the various traces left behind by the couple, showed that Zhuo Chonglu and Wu Yuding were great masters. Even if they were injured and couldn't display their strength, even if they experienced the mortal world and tempered their Taoist heart, it was impossible that they didn't leave behind any news, right? As the saying goes, people leave their names when they pass by, and wild geese leave their voices when they pass by. However, the two of them searched the internet. So Xiaoduo even hacked into some government databases to check, but they couldn't find any relevant clues. The two of them were extremely curious about the original identities of their parents. Wu Taijiang was stunned. He was restless and muttered, It shouldn't be, right? So Xiaoduo said unhappily, Why do you sound so uncertain? They've already completed their mortal world experience. Uncle Wu, why are you still hiding it from us? Wu Taijiang wiped the sweat off his forehead. He suddenly had the urge to run away. What's my father's original name? Zhuo Xiaoyan asked. Your father. Ahem. He has so many incarnations. I'm not sure. Wu Taijiang said. No matter what, his surname is definitely Zhuo, right? Zhuo Xiaoduo said with certainty. He can't change his surname, right? That's true. Wu Taijiang felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. What's his real name then? Zhuo Xiaoduo was very curious. Wu Taijiang coughed. He had a flash of inspiration, so he said seriously, About this, I really can't tell you in detail. Think about it. Your father and mother didn't tell you about it. There must be another reason. If I tell you about it rashly, it's not very appropriate, right? Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo listened and felt that this sentence was quite reasonable. They didn't ask any more questions. In short, your father didn't tell you. It must be for the good of both of you, Wu Taijiang said. That's true. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan nodded. Zhuo Xiaoduo took a deep breath. She lowered her voice and said mysteriously, Uncle Wu, you said, our family and the minister-inspector. Ahem. Wu Taijiang coughed violently. What does it matter if it's true or not? So Xiaoduo finally finished speaking. She was full of expectation. Is my father, the minister's descendant, the descendant of the minister's bloodline when he was outside? Wu Taijiang's eyes were hanging out of their sockets. He was completely stunned. What I mean is my father the grandson of the minister-inspector's grandson? Or something like that. Zhuo Xiaoduo's dream of being an official's descendant had never been extinguished. Wu Taijiang felt like he was choking. A mouthful of fruit was stuck in his throat. After a long time, he finally swallowed it down. He frowned and thought deeply. I really don't know. Is there really no clue? There aren't many experts with the surnames in this continent, right? Zhuo said with dissatisfaction. I really don't know. But if you say so, your family might have something to do with the minister-inspector. Wu Taijiang said with difficulty. He had never said such a roundabout thing in his life. It was too difficult for him. Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo couldn't help but feel disappointed when they couldn't get anything out of Wu Taijiang's mouth. However, Wu Taijiang also felt that he couldn't say anything more. If he gave birth to a super official's descendant, his skin would be skinned by many people again and again. Cough, cough, cough. Do you remember that I promised your father to find some hammer techniques for you? Wu Taijiang asked. I remember. Uncle Wu, could it be that you? Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes lit up. Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Wu Taijiang took out 7 jade pendants from his ring. I gave you my storm hammer of 8 directions a long time ago. These 2 jade pendants are hammer techniques used in battle. One of them is called the Hammer of 10,000 Armies, and the other is called the Blood War Hammer. Both of them were created by 2 generals who had experienced countless bloody battles in the past. The hammer techniques are broad and wide, and when used in battle, they are invincible. The remaining techniques are the Nebula Hammer, the Thunder Hammer, the Mountain River Hammer, and the Sun and Moon Hammer. Wu Taijiang explained, the first few techniques each have their own unique techniques, and the principles are basically the same. Only the Sun and Moon Hammer focuses on one yin and one yang, one hard and one soft, and the 2 converge to unleash their power. A heavy weapon like a hammer has always been known for its strength and fierceness. As for how to converge yin and yang, how to combine hardness and softness, you'll have to study this carefully. After he finished speaking, he imparted all the hammer techniques to Zhuo Xiaoduo in the living room. Zhuo Xiaoduo's current spirit was no longer comparable to the past. When he was imparted to the level of several techniques, he only felt a little dazed in his mind before he returned to normal. How is it? Wu Taijiang asked with concern. Nothing. Zhuo Xiaoduo quickly flipped through the techniques in his mind and put them aside. There was no hurry. It would not be too late to practice them when he went to the space of the Void Extermination Tower. You already have a lot of hammer techniques, but as your cultivation gets higher and higher, your strength will also get stronger. You'll definitely feel that your hammer is getting lighter and lighter, and it'll be difficult for you to use it freely, right? But in terms of fighting against enemies, the size of your hammer has already reached the limit. What do you have to say about this? I'm also thinking about this problem. There are many solutions to this problem, whether it's the weapon tempering technique, the blood refining technique, or the harmonious spirit technique. As long as you complete any one of them, you'll naturally be able to make it as heavy or light as you want. Understood. Yes, I still have a few sets of cultivation techniques here, including movement techniques, footwork techniques, sword techniques, saber techniques, hidden weapons techniques, as well as the spirit mastery technique, weapon tempering technique, blood refining technique, soul nurturing technique. These are all prepared for the 2 of you. You need to enlighten them twice. Well, some of them are just for little Nyener. Thank you, Uncle Wu. After another round of work, the 2 of them were finally done with the head bestowment in the afternoon. After the 2 of them dipped their toes in a simple manner, they both felt somewhat bewildered. Uncle Wu, the others are fine. They're all within the scope of our knowledge. We can follow the method and go deeper. But this knife technique, why is it so strange? It doesn't seem to be very reasonable. Zhuo Xiaoduo tried to explore the cultivation techniques in his mind and quickly found that there was something wrong with the knife technique. This knife technique can only be used with the Imperial Sky technique, and before using the knife, one must leap. Isn't it very different from the ordinary moves? What is this? Zhuo Xiaoduo was puzzled and could not help but ask. This knife technique seemed to be powerful, but Zhuo Xiaoduo simulated it in his mind and felt that it was not very powerful. There was not much surprise, and there were many things that did not make sense. This is a long knife technique. Wu Taijiang coughed and said, to use this kind of long knife technique, the knife in the hand must be at least 35 meters long. The width of the blade must be at least 6 meters, and the thickness of the back must be at least 5 meters. Chapter 846. A saber that's more than 35 meters long. Zhuoduo and Zhuoxianyan were both shocked when they heard this. At the same time, they imagined it in their minds and couldn't help but shudder. Just imagining such a long saber and waving it on the battlefield, that was simply, unimaginably bloody and cruel. Little Nian doesn't need to practice this saber technique, but Zhuoduo can pay more attention to it. This saber is not only a long weapon, but also a heavy weapon. It's a great killing weapon. Wu Taijiang coughed and said seriously, "This saber technique is not easy to come by." It said that the Sky Inspecting Minister used it to dominate the world and suppress the Umno Alliance. The Flood Witch's hammer technique was invincible. The Sky Inspecting Minister specially created this saber to counter the Flood Witch's hammer technique. Using heavy to deal with heavy, from ancient times until now, there has always been saber techniques before sabers. Only this saber technique was created first. Then, according to the characteristics of this saber technique was specially created. The Flood Witch's hammer technique can be used in a battle between people of the same level and strength. As long as he closes the distance, he will definitely die. The minister uses this saber to increase the distance and deal with the Flood Witch. Weight, distance, and technique are 3 restraints. Looking at the 3 continents, only this saber can contend with the hammer technique of the Umno Alliance's invincible the Flood Witch. Wu Tiejiang's face was serious, but his heart was full of curses. I gave you your father's saber technique, and you still have to pretend that you don't know. You still have to exaggerate your father's saber technique. Anyone would understand this feeling. It's actually the saber technique of the Sky Inspecting Minister. Zhuoduo suddenly became serious. In his heart, he instantly equated the level of this saber technique with his own hammer technique. In fact, it was even more powerful than his hammer technique. This was the saber technique of the Sky Inspecting Minister. This was definitely a treasure. Uncle Wu, how did you get such a peerless saber technique? It must have taken a lot of effort, right? Zhuoduo said gratefully. Of course, it took a lot of effort. Wu Taijiang nodded. He thought to himself, actually, it was effortless. Your father gave it to me. But if I want to practice this kind of bladesmanship, I'll need at least one such strange blade. Zhuoduo was a little worried. How should such a huge saber be made? What kind of material should it be made of? Saber. Wu Tiejiang's heart suddenly thumped. Damn it. You want me to deliver the saber technique, but you don't give me a saber. Where can I find such a long saber? Doesn't that mean I have to throw in a huge amount of materials again? But the problem is, I really don't know where to find so many materials. This kind of saber could not be made of ordinary materials. Wu Taijiang immediately broke out in a cold sweat. No wonder. He left the saber art for me to deliver, and then he left by himself. At that time, he felt that he had passed the test with ease, that he even rejoiced. Only now did he realize it. Only saber techniques. Where's the fucking saber? This kind of special saber technique required a special saber. Without a saber, with only saber techniques, how can I practice with hammers? Isn't this cheating me? Let me take a look at the materials you two have first. Wu Taijiang quickly changed the topic. It's not that I don't want to help. It's that ordinary materials can't make such a huge saber, but I don't have so many high-quality materials. This matter needs to be discussed at length. Zhuoduo looked at Zhuoxianyan. Zhuoxianyan hesitated for a moment, and then took out the soul-snatching sword. She said, Uncle Wu, take a look at this sword. What do you think? As soon as Wu Taijiang took out the sword, Zhuoduo emerged from the hilt and blew a breath of cold air at Wu Taijiang. Puff! No matter how much Wu Taijiang thought about it, he would never have thought that such a thing would happen. He was completely unprepared, and a gust of cold air blew on his head. Even though his cultivation was high, he still felt dizzy, and his divine sense blurred. He fell back with a thud. Fortunately, he was sitting on the sofa, so he did not make a fool of himself. Zhuoxianyan was shocked, and hurriedly stopped Ice Spirit. Zhuoduo, Don't mess around. So Xiao Duo, who was sitting at the side, was immediately upset. This, no matter how he looked at it, he was shouting at him and teaching him a lesson. This feeling was really that the two of them hurriedly looked at Wu Taijiang. As Xiaoyan hurriedly retracted the cold air. Wu Taijiang recovered quickly because of the unexpected incident. After all, he was a super expert. Although Xiao Duo's breath was powerful and sudden, it was still far from hurting him. He only needed to circulate his inner qi to recover. As his vitality evaporated, the remaining cold air on his face turned into water and flowed down. Amazing! Although Wu Taijiang had recovered, his old face was flushed red. He was also a veteran of the Jianghu. How could he not know that if he had lost control on the battlefield just now, he would have been killed 100 times over? I'm all right. Facing the concerned and guilty gaze of the siblings, Wu Taijiang waved his hand. Then, a strange light flashed in his eyes, and he stared at Xiao Duo without blinking. Xiao Duo, who was the size of a finger, wrinkled her little nose and snorted. She twisted her small waist and went back into the soul's natural sword, never to come out again. This is the ice spirit that has recognized its master. Wu Taijiang looked at the soul's natural sword in shock. Wu Taijiang was completely unaware of the fact that Zhuo Xiaoyan had become the ice soul's master. Otherwise, he would have taken precautions. Now that they saw the ice soul, their minds are shaken to the core. It really has its own consciousness. It can already transform. It's a complete peak ice spirit. Seeing Xiao Duo's completely human-like actions, Wu Taijiang almost fainted. He looked at the soul's natural sword, and then looked at Zhuo Xiaoyan. The shock in his heart was filled with emotions. This girl's luck was really that since the beginning of time, only the great ice soul of the sorcerer clan had managed to get an ice soul to recognize him as its master. However, when he got the ice soul, his cultivation base had already reached the peak of the current era, even above the Sky Soul realm. Zhuo Xiaoyan was only at the cloud transformation realm, but she had already obtained the ice spirit's recognition. This was a big matter that had never been heard of since ancient times. Wu Taijiang felt that his head was not working well. For a long time, he still could not believe that this was true. Wu Taijiang calmed himself down and asked in a deep voice, "What do you want to do about this sword?" At this moment, he only had one thought. The sword that I obtained has now become a divine weapon, and a divine weapon with a complete ice spirit as its sword spirit. This glory made Wu Taijiang's whole body heat up. He really wanted to shout, "I obtained a divine weapon." So a Xiaoyan duo asked carefully, "Uncle Wu, can you add more ice attribute materials to this sword so that Xiao Duo can live more comfortably inside?" Xiao Duo felt Xiaoyan Duo's concern and happily appeared again. She floated up and kissed Xiaoyan Duo's face before returning happily. No need. Wu Taijiang picked up the soul's natural sword and looked at the snow-white sword body with appreciation. He said, "This sword has obtained the fortune of the ice spirit and has the ability to evolve on its own." Evolve on its own? Yes. Wu Taijiang looked at the soul's natural sword with appreciation. If you have 10,000 years mysterious ice or other ice attribute materials, you only need to insert the sword into it. The ice spirit will naturally absorb the ice essence. When you see the ice attribute materials showing signs of melting, it means that the essence has been completely absorbed. Wu Taijiang sighed and said, "Now, this sword no longer needs a scabbard." "You mean, normally, I have to insert it into the mysterious ice and keep it in this state?" "That's right. In this way, you don't need to work hard to cultivate the ice attribute cold energy. As long as you are in contact with the sword and the mysterious ice during cultivation, it will naturally provide you with an endless supply of ice attribute spiritual energy. Of course, when you cultivate, you still need to use the jade of astral souls to absorb the vital energy. When you are cultivating, as long as you carry this sword with you, the cold energy will nourish it and it will naturally change its attribute. This is the biggest advantage of the ice spirit recognizing you as its owner." "Oh, No wonder my cultivation has improved rapidly during this period. Zhuo Xiaoyan Duo looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo as if to show off. Zhuo Xiaoyan Duo decided that in the future, she would not put the Spirit Snatcher sword in the ring or the scabbard. She would always insert it into the mysterious ice. Anyway, she had a lot of mysterious ice in her hands, at least a few thousand cubic meters. With Xiao Duo as her support, the time difference in the space of the Tower of Emptiness, and so much mysterious ice. How can you fight with me, little dog? The foundation of this sword has been established. There is no need to make any changes or forge anymore. It only needs to evolve on its own. What's more, the Spirit Snatcher sword that has been infused with the Ice Spirit has reached the point where it can be adjusted according to your own strength. Wu Taijiang was full of admiration. Heavenly weapon. This is the true meaning of a heavenly weapon. In the future, when the soul of the Ice Phoenix awakens and is swallowed by the Ice Spirit, its power will be further enhanced. The more Wu Taijiang said, the more excited he became. However, he was also very suspicious. How did this little girl get such a great blessing? Then in the future, when this weapon reaches its peak, what level will it reach? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked with concern. Peak? How can this divine sword reach its peak? Wu Taijiang said in a deep voice. This kind of divine weapon will evolve with the improvement of its owner's cultivation and will always be compatible with it. In other words, as Nian Er's cultivation progresses, this sword will continue to evolve and become stronger and stronger. No matter what level it will reach, I won't be surprised. The Ice Spirit is originally an innate spiritual object. Do you understand innate spiritual objects? Even if Nian can reach the starry sky at that time, this Spirit Snatcher sword can still be compatible with it and reach the level of the legendary peerless divine weapons, such as the Dongwang Bell, the mysterious Yellow Pagoda, the Huahuang Sword. That kind of super level. As Wu Taijiang spoke, he suddenly burst into laughter. Chapter 847. I forged this sword by chance. I, Wu Taijiang, have nothing else to ask for in this life. Although I've only forged a sword embryo, I, Wu Taijiang, feel honored that this sword can reach the pinnacle and become a real divine artifact. He finally seized the opportunity to boast about himself. Huahuang's sword. Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked by Wu Taijiang's mention of the divine artifact. Huahuang's sword. Isn't it the one I just got? But I didn't feel anything unusual. Yes, it said that when the world changed greatly, the whole sky collapsed. All the creatures on the continent were facing a catastrophe. It was Empress Hua, the heavenly son of heaven, who used endless divine power to forge the sky-mending stone to fill the gap in the sky. That's how all the creatures survived and reproduced. Wu Taijiang said respectfully. So, all the creatures in the world should be grateful to Empress Hua for her grace of rebirth. The Huahuang sword is Empress Hua's sword. When Empress Hua mended the sky, she held the Huahuang sword. This sword originally had another name, but since then, it's been called the Huahuang sword by word of mouth. Zhuo Xiaoduo asked curiously, is this Huahuang sword very powerful? Is it very powerful? Wu Taijiang glanced at Zhuo Xiaoduo disdainfully. Boy, I'm telling you, don't use your shallow knowledge to guess the power of the Huahuang sword. The Huahuang sword can command thunder and lightning, overturn seas and rivers, change the world, and control life and death. Wu Taijiang said respectfully. This is a divine artifact. It's the real pinnacle of the divine artifact. Zhuo Xiaoduo narrowed his eyes and pondered. That sword is so awesome. I really didn't see it. However, Zhuo Xiaoyan's sword had a chance to become such an existence in the future. Zhuo Xiaoduo felt sincerely happy and elated. Zhuo Xiaoduo thought of another thing, so he asked excitedly, Uncle Wu, what about my hammer? That is also a divine weapon that came from your hands. Your hammer. Wu Taijiang coughed. What do you mean? Although the spirit-snatching sword and your 9-9 cat hammer were both made by me, the foundation of the spirit-snatching sword's limitless future lies in the sword spirit. Your hammer. Compared to him, the difference is like heaven and earth. How can you compare the difference between heaven and earth? As for your hammer, you should nurture it well. If you use your spirit and blood essence to refine it. Wu Taijiang deliberated for a long time in his heart and said, "It may not be impossible to become a treasure that is a few grades lower than the spirit-snatching sword. Believe me, as long as you have enough luck, you still have a chance." Suddenly, Zhuoxiaoduo's face became a bitter. This sentence, I don't feel excited at all. Of course, if you can find a pair of innate spiritual objects like the ice spirit and use them as the hammer spirit, your future achievement may not be lower than the spirit-snatching sword. Wu Taijiang comforted him casually. It was really just a casual comfort. In Wu Taijiang's view, it was a great blessing to see an innate spiritual object like the ice spirit once, let alone get it, let alone own it. If Zhuoxiaoduo wants to get a pair, you better think about it. Even if your family seems to have good feng shui, you can't expect all the good things in the world to come to your family, right? My daughter has already got the ice spirit. If my son gets a pair, then it won't be one, but two innate spiritual objects of the same standard. That's impossible. Spiritual objects suitable for the spirit-snatching sword are rare, but there are always some. But when it comes to spiritual objects suitable for the cat hammer, not only are there not many, but there are also none. Moreover, look at the lousy name you came up with. 99 Cat Hammer. Even if there is an innate spiritual object, it will definitely stay away from your hammer when it hears the name. Those who don't know will think you're acting in a cartoon. A pair of innate spiritual objects. Zhuoxiaoduo's heart suddenly became lively. I seem to have a pair. The pair that I can't command now. I wonder, can I do it? This thought only flashed through his mind. Uncle Wu, can the ice spirit grow? Zhuoxiaoyan was still worried when she thought of this. That day, Zhuoxiaoduo was angry because of this incident, and even made her dance because of it. That Zhuoxiaoyan didn't want the ice spirit to marry someone else, but she also didn't want Zhuoxiaoduo to have another concubine. Grow? What do you mean, grow? Wu Taijiang was stunned. Zhuoxiaoyan felt a little embarrassed and said, when she grows up, will she be like a human girl, getting married, falling in love, or something? She simply pushed the responsibility to Zhuoxiaoduo. He wants to marry the ice spirit as his concubine. Cough, cough, cough. Zhuoxiaoduo coughed violently. Save some face in front of outsiders. Falling in love. Marrying. Concubine. Wu Taijiang's face suddenly became distorted. What are you thinking? Wu Taijiang obviously couldn't understand Zhuoxiaoduo's brain circuit. How was this possible? That's an innate spiritual object. Don't you know what innate spiritual objects are? Cough, cough, cough. Zhuoxiaoduo coughed. Stop talking. Zhuoxiaoduo actually knew this problem, but he was bullying Zhuoxiaoyan because she didn't know. Why? Zhuoxiaoyan asked curiously. The ice spirit. Wu Taijiang was completely speechless. The ice spirit is now in her complete form, and she's only this big. Of course, if you want her to grow up, she can become as big as you right now, exactly the same size. She can even become 100 times bigger than you. But falling in love and marrying a concubine, where does this come from? Wu Taijiang felt that his brain was about to go haywire from explaining this problem. What kind of bastard idea was this? It's completely impossible. Innate spiritual objects. Who can they marry? Besides, they don't even have this kind of idea. Since ancient times, which one of the top divine artifacts has ever gotten married? As for becoming a concubine, Wu Taijiang looked at Zhuoxiaoduo. If you dare to get close, I guarantee that your little chick will melt in an instant. Moreover, it was the kind that would never grow again. If you must try, I won't stop you, as long as you dare. Zhuoxiaoduo hung his head dejectedly. Zhuoxiaoyan glared fiercely at Zhuoxiaoduo. She understood now. This kid was obviously using this as a pretext to make a fuss, just to see her dance. How could he make up such a lame excuse? That she thought for a moment and asked, then if there are other innate spiritual objects, will they? Wu Taijiang was extremely speechless. Even the ice spirit and the ice spirit won't get married. This kind of thing is unique once it comes out. They don't need any partners at all. In the whole world, they're the proudest existence. This kind of thinking is simply ignorant. Wu Taijiang was speechless to a certain extent. Zhuo Xiaonian's eyes were filled with murderous intent as she stared at Zhuo Xiaoduo. Zhuo Xiaoduo lowered his head like a quail and shrunk his shoulders. Uncle Wu, you really make me speechless. I finally found this reason to make Nian Yin dance for me. And I also found out that Nian Yin has secretly started to learn other dances, that my plan was progressing steadily toward success. Seeing the results, I believe that it wouldn't be long before I could coax her into dancing with cat ears, and then with a cat's tail, and then step by step, until she doesn't wear it. Now look what happened. Your words have completely destroyed my blissful life and beautiful vision. Forget about cat ears, cat tail, and the supreme enjoyment after that. Even standing on the grassland and looking at Beijing, that I'm going to toss them all away. You are my nemesis. So, it's really impossible to fall in love and get married as a concubine? Zhuo Xiaonian's cold eyes were like knives that slashed Zhuo Xiaoduo's body. She thought of how she had suffered so much and served him so carefully. In the end, she was deceived. Even if the whole universe explodes, it's absolutely impossible, Wu Taijiang said firmly. Little puppy, you are so great, Zhuo Xiaonian said sarcastically. Just you wait from now on, humph. Zhuo Xiaoduo was grief-stricken. I was wrong. Looking at the situation, Wu Taijiang almost laughed out loud. He was experienced in the ways of the world, so he naturally knew that this kid was taking advantage of the situation, that this brat really hadn't changed. Deep down, he was the same as his father. As the old saying goes, like father, like son. Is there anything else? Wu Taijiang asked Zhuo Xiaonian. Then Zhuo Xiaonian took out a pile of ice crystal iron, ice soul tree, black ice heart, and black jade ice. What about these? Just handle them like the black ice. Actually, it's better to just give them to the ice spirit. It knows how to choose and how to use them, Wu Taijiang said, but the most convenient way is to directly put the tip of the sword in. The ice spirit will naturally do the rest of the work. Xiao Duo popped out from the sword hilt again. Its small eyes looked at Wu Taijiang admiringly and then disappeared. It was also thinking about how to absorb the energy, but it didn't have a clue yet. After all, it had just recognized its master and was used to thinking from its own point of view. It forgot that it was now a sword spirit. The tip of the sword could break the surface, and it could touch the inside of the essence of the ice element. Absorbing the energy directly was no doubt much better than grinding it from the outside to the inside. At this point, Zhuo Xiaonian was finally relieved. She had 100% ice attribute heaven and earth treasures here. She really had no interest in things of other attributes. After hearing Wu Taijiang's words, she was naturally completely relieved. What about you? Wu Taijiang asked with Xiaoduo. I have a lot of materials. I don't even know what level most of the things are, so I'll have to trouble you to take a look. Chapter 848. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, Then hurry up and take it out for me to see. So Xiaoduo first took out one of the 9 big stones that he kept in the chaotic space. Just by putting it on the floor, the villa instantly shook. Dust began to fall from the top. Wu Taijiang was shocked when he saw this. He hurriedly asked Zhuo Xiaoduo to put away, and then the 3 of them went to the big courtyard behind the villa. Don't take it out first. Wu Taijiang first installed 2 racks on the ground, then moved out the large forging platform and placed it on the racks. He felt that it was not very stable, so he simply buried all 4 racks into the ground and placed a large platform on top of the racks. Okay, just put the big stone on top of it, Wu Taijiang said. So Xiaoduo moved the stone out and put it on the platform. Then he saw that the platform, which was made of some unknown metal, was slowly sinking until a pit was formed. Only then did it stop. So Xiaoduo was puzzled. He did not feel that it was so heavy, but looking at the weight, it was obviously ridiculously heavy. What's going on? Wu Taijiang's face was serious, and his eyes flashed with pain. This is a pure golden steel load-bearing platform. It's half a meter thick. It's actually wasted in this place. In addition to the pain, he was more excited. He really did not expect that Zhuo Xiaoduo would have such a good thing and such a big piece. This is the starry sky, eternal stone. Wu Tiejiang's eyes lit up. And such a big piece? This is 2 cubic meters. Damn, it's still so complete. What is the starry sky, eternal stone? You don't even know what it is, and you put in your pocket? Casting pearls before swine. Casting pearls before swine. This starry sky, eternal stone. Hee hee. In the end, it's still a stone. It's just that this stone, even if placed in the vast starry sky, can exist forever. No matter how time passes, no matter how the world is overturned, no matter what level of destruction it encounters, this stone is eternal and indestructible. Wu Taijiang couldn't bear to part with the legendary material in front of him, as if he was caressing his most beloved lover. That's right, there's another legend about the starry sky, indestructible stone. It's that. The reason why the starry sky exists for so long is because of this stone. In other words, this stone is a special energy that supports the starry sky. Wu Tiejiang's expression became more and more excited. This kind of stone, no matter where it is placed, will automatically absorb all the metal essence around it and fuse it into the stone. However, after any metal essence enters this stone, it will still be a stone. It will not undergo any changes. It will only make this stone even more indestructible and indestructible. If this stone is taken out in the villa, the steel bars that support the building, including the main body of the villa, will be extracted by this stone. Then, the villa will collapse. Wu Taijiang explained why he wanted to take it out, and then said, now that it's placed on top of this piece of golden steel, this table of mine can no longer be used after today because the essence has been absorbed by this stone. If I continue to forge on top of it, it will shatter like porcelain and turn into fine powder. I see. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan were both amazed, but they also felt that it was inconceivable. There is actually such a strange stone in this world, and it had such characteristics. They had never heard of it before, and it was unbelievable. However, Zhuo Xiaoduo was more concerned. What other uses does this stone have? From what Zhuo Xiaoduo heard, this stone was very sturdy, had lived for a long time, and had the ability to absorb metal essence. However, these didn't seem to be related to actual combat, right? Especially the last characteristic. It was simply an attribute that was diametrically opposed to the existence of weapons, and it was difficult for them to be compatible. Wu Taijiang smiled and said, this legendary stone has more magical uses. I only need a piece of it the size of a finger. After I smelt it and integrate it into a weapon, the weapon will have the characteristics of eternity. It will be indestructible and indestructible, and it will continue to grow stronger as the battle goes on, because it can continuously absorb the essence of the opponent's weapon during the battle and use it as its own nutrients. Zhuo Xiaoduo's eyes lit up. Really? You can add some of it to your cat spirit sword. Wu Taijiang thought for a while and said, and you can add some of it to your hammer. Well, the starry sky stone in your hand is quite heavy. I'll try to see if I can apply a layer of it on the surface of your hammer. But even so, it won't consume much. The weight of this stone is too big, so there will definitely be a lot of surplus. Wu Taijiang negotiated. Look, can you give me some of the surplus of this stone? Can you also strengthen the weapons of the 4 frontier generals and the left and right heavenly kings? If it is successfully smelted, it can at least increase the power of the weapons by 1 level. In Wu Tiejiang's view, Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan combined could not consume 1/10 of such a large piece of starry sky eternal stone. There would definitely be a lot left, and it could be used to enhance the attributes of the weapons of the left and right heavenly kings and the other astral souls at the border, and greatly increase the overall combat power of the astral souls. No problem. You can have a rest. Zhuo Xiaoduo readily agreed. Apart from strengthening my hammer, sword, and some other weapons, I will also reforge my 30-meter-long broadsword. You can have the rest. Wu Tiejiang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. A 30-meter-long broadsword? Are you fucking kidding me? If you apply a layer of your 99 kitty hammer to this rock, and if you apply another layer of your knife, it won't be enough anymore. How can you be so shameless as to say that you can give the rest to me? The broadsword hasn't taken shape yet, so I won't consider it. Wu Taijiang said with difficulty. Then when will it take shape? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked. This question was a little persistent. It was rare for Wu Taijiang to come. So how could he let go so easily? He had to get his hands on the broadsword no matter what. After I get these things, I will go to the generals and the heavenly kings to exchange for some materials before I can forge the broadsword. Wu Taijiang suddenly had an idea. I don't have enough materials right now. You don't have enough materials for the broadsword? Zhuo Xiaoduo was stunned. 40 meters long, 6 meters wide on the blade, and 5 meters thick on the back. Just think about it. How heavy would it be? Perhaps dozens or hundreds of tons. This did not seem to be enough. So he stopped talking. Yes, I will forge some hidden weapons for you with some fine stone fragments. Don't use these hidden weapons carelessly. You should know that these hidden weapons have an indestructible property. As long as one's cultivation reaches a certain level, they can even kill Sky Sur Realm experts. These hidden weapons made from indestructible starry sky stones are destructive to a living being's body, and they can't be healed. This is because the injuries they cause are indestructible as well. Unless one dies, the wounds will remain in an injured state. No matter what treatment you use, it won't be able to heal them. Wu Taijiang reminded. If it's not a deep grudge or a battle, try not to use it. That's great. That's great. Then I'll have to trouble Uncle Wu to help me make more. Zhuo Xiaoduo was very excited. Forge more? Wu Taijiang was stunned. This stone of astral souls is indeed very heavy, but it's only enough to ensure that you, Xiaoyan, and the higher-ups at the border have their weapons. There's not much left, just some scraps. That's why I said that I'll forge a few hidden weapons for you in case of emergencies. If you want to forge more, I'm afraid that the higher-ups at the border won't have enough. What are you talking about? Do you think I'm ignorant? I still have more starry sky stones, plenty of them. Zhuo Xiaoduo threw out 8 more starry sky stones and placed them all on the golden stainless steel table. With a crisp crack, the golden stainless steel table cracked like a spider web. Wu Taijiang was stunned. So many? How could there be so many of these super treasures? How could there be so many of them? Where? Where did you get all these? Wu Taijiang couldn't figure it out. These were dreamy materials that could only be found by chance. Even the Crown Prince's Academy couldn't have them. They could only exist in the starry sky. Even if the Crown Prince's Academy had them, they couldn't have placed them in the nascent soul trial area, let alone in piles like this. Haha, when I went in a train, I accidentally found them. They were very hard, so I brought them all back. I thought they were useless. So Xiaoduo scratched his head and said vaguely, "This luck, this opportunity." Wu Taijiang was now convinced and full of admiration. He found a few stones casually. He brought all of them back. He thought they were useless. These are more than enough. They are too much. Wu Taijiang looked at the other stones that seemed to be even bigger. They were as tall as a few people, and his eyes were filled with the look of a beauty that could topple countries. Yes, he only needed to take out one of them, and he could strengthen all the weapons of the sky realm and above in the continent. This was the kind of super weapon that would get stronger the more it was used. Other than weapons of the same level that could resist it, there was no other weapon that couldn't be restrained by the starry sky, indestructible stone. Of course, a weapon that possessed an artifact spirit could still resist and even suppress it. However, since ancient times, how many of such weapons were there? How many of them have been passed down to the present world? They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. With such a weapon in hand, as the power of the weapon continued to increase, the user's combat strength would also increase. The moment he started using it, his combat strength would increase by at least 30%. Xiaoduo, how many hidden weapons do you want to make? Wu Taijiang looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo cautiously. Uncle Wu, apart from the part you gave to the seniors, how many hidden weapons do you think you can make? Zhuo Xiaoduo asked. Chapter 849. What do you mean? You mean you want to refine all of them into hidden weapons? Are you serious? Wu Taijiang was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that Zhuo Xiaoduo would give such an answer. What a waste of resources. This little bastard was so extravagant that it angered the heavens. Why don't we make 10 or 20,000 stones first? So Xiaoduo thought about it and asked tentatively, I suggest we make about 10,000 hidden weapons. That way, we only need a big stone. Wu Taijiang said, in this way, there will still be a lot of surplus left, which can be saved for emergencies in the future. If such a good thing is used up all at once, when there is a need in the future, there will be nothing to be done and regret. Zhou Xiaoduo agreed. Therefore, after discussion, Zhou Xiaoduo left 3 stones untouched. Wu Taijiang took 2 of the same size. The remaining 4 stones were all used to make hidden weapons. I have a shower request. Can you make a few other weapons? A few of my classmates also need them. Zhou Xiaoduo rubbed his hands. It's just that it'll be very troublesome for Uncle Wu. I'm a little embarrassed. Wu Taijiang rolled his eyes. You said it so fluently, but I don't see you being embarrassed at all. You have given me so many starry sky, indestructible stones. How can I refuse your small request? No problem. Wu Taijiang could only answer like this. Even if there was a problem, there had to be no problem. Wu Taijiang knew very well that this little bastard's face was like a curtain. He could pull it down whenever he wanted. If he was unhappy, he could deduct the part that was originally agreed to be given to him at any time. Then, I'll keep these 2 smaller stones first. Wu Taijiang said, don't worry, you won't lose out this time. These starry sky eternal stones are priceless. I'll explain it to each of them. You won't be short of benefits. Zhou Xiaoduo laughed. This matter is not urgent. If it doesn't work, everyone can write an IOU. Wu Taijiang sighed heavily. He thought that Zhou Xiaoduo was going to tell him to forget about it. After all, they were fighting for humanity. In the end, this kid didn't even think about letting it go. He even gave him an IOU. If the higher-ups of astral souls gave out IOUs, they would think of a way to redeem them no matter what. In fact, the value of the IOUs was even higher than the value of the IOUs. So Xiaoduo understood this very well. What's mine is mine. I can give it away when I'm in a good mood, but I can't donate it, not even once. Things like donating could only happen once or countless times. There was no such thing as once or twice. If I really didn't want a single cent, these guys might even scold me for being an idiot. As for my resolve, the fact that I'm willing to take it out is proof of my resolve. Moreover, Zhou Xiaoduo believed that the Yinwu Empire would need to spend money to purchase weapons from the military factories or other necessities for the army. Perhaps they would purchase them at a fair price, but they would never be able to save money. Since that's the case, I naturally have to pay for what's mine. Whether it's in the form of favors, money, or treasures, I have to accept it. What they owe me is what they owe me. There's nothing much to say. It has nothing to do with resolve. What other good stuff do you have? Wu Taijiang was quite happy to be able to obtain so many priceless treasures. There's also this. Zhou Xiaoduo tossed out another square piece of land. It was neatly cut and was several cubic meters in size. This was the piece of land he obtained from the chaos space. Zhou Xiaoduo had never heard of such a hard piece of land, but he had dug up quite a few. Zhou Xiaoduo didn't think much of this. If it's useless, I'll use this as the foundation when I build a house in the future. Or when I build a training ground, I'll use this as the ground. After all, it's rare to see something that can't be smashed by a cat's hammer. This is Chaos Earth. Wu Taijiang grimaced. How did this kid get so many good things? His luck was too good, wasn't it? Chaos Earth. Zhou Xiaoduo was a little puzzled. What's the origin of this thing? What's its use? It's more than useful. It's a rare treasure that's hard to find in the mortal world. Wu Taijiang said seriously. However, this thing is useless to the average person because one of its main uses is assimilation. In other words, if you have a piece of land and bury this chaos earth in the ground, then this piece of land will become the land of the chaos space. Another characteristic of the chaotic soil is that it can cultivate high-grade heaven and earth treasures. Those heaven and earth treasures that are not high-grade will immediately die once they enter this soil. Only very high-grade spirit materials, spirit plants, and spirit medicines can survive in the chaotic soil. The treasures planted in the chaos earth will grow at a much higher rate than normal, and their final quality will also be higher than their own inherent quality limit. Legend has it that this chaos earth is the embryonic soil that nurtures innate treasures because the energy it contains is chaos energy. Treasures that can't withstand it will only explode and be annihilated. On the other hand, if it's successfully absorbed, it can naturally break through its own inherent shackles and transform into a higher quality. Wu Taijiang said, "But the grade of this thing is too high. With your small arms and legs, you can't use it at all. You won't be staying in this villa for long. I think it'll be difficult for you to stay in one place for a long time in the future, right? Maybe when the world is peaceful, you can choose to retire in a place and open up your own medicine yard. At that time, this chaos earth will come in handy." So Xiaoduo's eyes lit up. He thought to himself, "Not only do I have such a place, but it's also very big. You mean to say that just burying it is enough?" So Xiaoduo asked modestly. "Yes, as long as you bury it in the soil and pile 3 feet of ordinary yellow soil on top, the land will naturally be assimilated. With the chaos earth you have now, assimilating a few acres of land will be no problem." Wu Taijiang said, "Setting up this thing is the easiest. The difficulty is that you have to have this thing and also have enough high-quality heavenly treasures to plant. So you should keep it first. Maybe it'll come in handy in the future." Okay, so Xiaoduo didn't hesitate and immediately kept it. He began to calculate in his heart. "I have a lot of these things in my hands, at least a few thousand cubic meters. According to Uncle Wu, won't I be able to assimilate a large area of chaos earth in the Tower of Annihilation to plant land?" After thinking about it, he was full of resentment towards the Huang sword. This kind of good thing, but that broken sword actually went on strike while digging. It really doesn't deserve to be a son. No matter what, I should have dug out that large area of land first. Sigh, what a waste, what a waste. Is there anything else? So Xiaoduo pondered for a while. I can't take out the sword of Empress and Vihua. That sword must be something good. If Uncle Wu recognized it and told others about it, I'm afraid it would cause a huge storm. How am I going to deal with it with my small arms and legs? As for the other things, there wasn't anything too rare. Although Xiaoduo gained a lot from this experience, the place he was in was still a nascent soul cultivator's experience area. The heavenly materials and earthly treasures he obtained were very old, but they were still not too precious. Even if he didn't know the use of them, he had already asked Li Chenglong and even anonymously asked for help on the internet. As for the many strange things in his godfather's ring, they were not helpful in forging, so he naturally skipped them. "No, that's good." Wu Taijiang was very happy and said, "I'll set up a blacksmith shop in your backyard. I'll first strengthen your sword and hammer, and then make those small things for you." "Okay, thank you, Uncle Wu." Zhuo Xiaoduo said gratefully. Wu Taijiang stayed at Zhuo Xiaoduo's place. That afternoon, he took out the blacksmithing materials. Zhuo Xiaoduo once again contributed a lot of 1,000 fantasy gold and heavenly witchcraft copper, while Wu Taijiang reluctantly took out his indestructible iron and set up the biggest furnace. "Don't worry, it's easy for me to heat up the furnace, but it'll take me at least a day and a night to reach the point where I can bake the starry sky indestructible stone. After a day and a night, I'll add in my furnace chi to help, and I'll need another hour to have a little confidence in turning the starry sky indestructible stone into a particle state. And to melt these particles into a liquid state and reach a state where it can be used for casting, I'll need to add in my soul fire to proceed." Wu Taijiang was very cautious and said, "And all of this is the most ideal theoretical model. If I can't melt the starry sky indestructible stone after adding in my soul fire, you'll need to use the second layer of your flaming sun scripture to help me." "No problem, I understand." So what Xiaoduo said, "When the time comes, just call me." Okay. In the evening, Zhuo Xiaoduo treated Wu Taijiang to a meal and then gave Li Chenglong a look. So Xianyan went back to the space of the Tower of Annihilation to practice on her own. Li Chenglong and Zhuo Xiaoduo went to Zhuo Xiaoduo's study. "How's your selection going?" Zhuo Xiaoduo asked. "It's almost done." Li Chenglong was really tired these days. Now, there are a few people who can be confirmed. Gao Qiao, could be the chief of logistics. So what do you think? Li Chenglong said very cautiously. So Xiaoduo frowned and said, Gao Xiao, her family can help us deal with some of the relatively low-level things at the moment, but I'm afraid they won't be able to handle the high-level things. Li Qinglong said, so on one hand, they need our support, and on the other hand, they need external help. So what do you think of the cooperation between the Xiang family and the Gao family? One in the open and one in the dark. So Xiaoduo pondered. On the surface, the Gao family is in charge, while the Xiang family is hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to act. Once the Gao family can't handle it, the Xiang family will come out to help and eliminate the crisis. What do you think? Chapter 850. Sure. So Xiaoduo looked at Li Qinglong. Li Qinglong breathed a sigh of relief. Of course, he could tell what Zhuo Xiaoduo's gaze meant. However, as Xiang Bing's man, Li Qinglong had to consider fighting for the benefit of the Xiang family. Therefore, he brought up his personal matter first. So Xiaoduo muttered, but the work of the Xiang family. Li Qinglong smiled bitterly. Zhuo Xiaoduo's words were quite interesting. After all, at present, it was just a group of several youngsters. Zhuo Xiaoduo's side certainly agreed, but the Xiang clan might not be interested in such a small group. Although Li Qinglong knew that this group would be huge and terrifying in the future, it was the future after all. It was just a pie in the sky. The Xiang family might not be interested in such a beautiful blueprint. I'll work on this matter. I'll make sure to make it happen. Li Qinglong said, Okay, then it's about our candidates. Needless to say, Xiang Bing and I will be one. As for Xiang Chan's position, Li Qinglong said, he'll be the adventurer. So Xiaoduo frowned and said, you should understand the risks involved. If Xiang Chong is the adventurer, he'll have to bear too much risk. Once something happens, he's your brother-in-law. Li Qinglong said helplessly, I also want him to live a long life. But look at his temper, style, weapons, and behavior. He's not a person who can support or hold the line in any aspect. Only when he's the adventurer, the kind who will press forward courageously, can his style and fighting style be maximized. So be it. Xiang Chong will be one of them. Zhuo Xiaoduo rolled his eyes and said, That's all for your people. Li Qinglong nodded. Both of them were very serious, and they were not joking. The reason why Li Qinglong mentioned the people who were related to him was because he had a tacit understanding with Zhuo Xiaoduo. Let the ugly things be said first. This was originally the most difficult part, and it was also the part that Li Qinglong valued the most. As long as this was settled, then there would be no more problems in the future. Li Qinglong understood what Zhuo Xiaoduo meant. Your people are done here. Therefore, from then on, Li Qinglong did not place any of his own people in the palace. Long Yuxing and Wan Li Xiao can be considered a wave. Yes, Li Chongming and Umo Yin can be counted as two groups. Yes. Then there's Zhou Yunqing. Li Qinglong hesitated. This person, Zhou Yunqing, doesn't count. Zhuo Xiaoduo directly rejected and said, Shui City No. 1 Middle School also needs a leader. If we incorporate Zhou Yunqing, Shui City will fall into a situation where there will be no leader. The most important thing is, Zhou Yunqing's personality is different from ours. If we force ourselves to be together, there will be unnecessary conflicts. Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and said, He's too righteous. Li Qinglong said, Then cross out Zhou Yunqing. As he said that, there was a sincere smile in his eyes. He understood that he was not the only one who was thinking these days. Zhuo Xiaoduo was also thinking about it. And this was also a great encouragement for Li Qinglong. After all, no one was willing to sing a one-man show. Meng Zhangjun, Hao Han, and the others. Li Qinglong took a deep breath and said, These people still need to be observed for a while before coming to a conclusion. So Xiaoduo was stunned. Why? He had a good impression of these people. These few people, their thoughts and emotions are a little complicated. Let's wait for them to figure out before we follow up. Li Qinglong said vaguely. Li Qinglong had already noticed some clues about Zhen Piapiao's matter during this period of time. The signs of Meng Zhangjuan's depression because of this matter were too obvious. It was impossible not to notice it even if you wanted to. As Meng Zhangjuan's close brother, Hao Han naturally followed Meng Zhangju. So Xiaoduo did not go to school these days, so he did not notice this. However, Li Qinglong saw it clearly and remembered it in his heart. If Meng Zhongjun could not figure it out, then no matter how great Meng Zhongjun's future potential was, Li Qinglong would not include him in the team. He did not want to have a person in the team who regarded the boss as a love rival. Because of this kind of mentality, even if it could be suppressed now, it could cause the entire team to collapse at any time if it was instigated by someone with ulterior motives in the future. It was the biggest hidden danger and must be eliminated. What's more, Meng Zhongjun had always been the boss among the people in the garrison shop. At the very least, the mentality of I am the boss was real. And this was also one of Li Qinglong's concerns. Zhuo Xiaoduo was not the person who gave orders, but the existence of a trump card and a spiritual leader. At this time, when someone in the team proposed something, the existence of a small group would be a factor that affected the decision. It was very likely that a matter that could be passed with one sentence would be twisted in another direction or directly go in the opposite direction. Regarding this, Li Qinglong had to nip it in the bud. Only one voice was allowed in the team. Although Zhuo Xiaoduo did not understand what was going on, he did not have any opinion. Then let's wait first. Zhen Piapiao can also wait for a while, Li Qinglong said. Li Qinglong had a different opinion about Zhen Piapiao. After all, this was a girl who had a crush in her heart. Putting her in the team was also a hidden danger. If the boss made a mistake, this matter would be very serious. It might cause problems for the big family. And the boss's family problems would definitely cause the boss to be in a bad mood. When the boss was in a bad mood, he might make a lot of irrational decisions. Even if the boss did not make a mistake, a single beauty in the team could easily become a femme fatale. Others might not necessarily not make a mistake, but the single dogs might not necessarily not have any thoughts. And once that happened, the bad consequences would be unpredictable. Even if the boss did not make a mistake, others would not make a mistake. If Zhen Piapiao could not figure it out, she would inevitably sink deeper and deeper, unable to extricate herself. Being pitiful and sad every day was not a good thing for the whole team. She was also an unstable factor, so naturally it was better to avoid her. Therefore, Li Qinglong temporarily removed Zhen Piapiao. Okay, Zhuo Xiaoduo did not have any opinion. Yu Yin can consider joining. Okay, Pai Bao can join. Okay. Yu Yin and Li Zhongming's relationship is still unclear, and Yu Yin family is very big. Li Qinglong said, so for the time being, I don't recommend them to be in the same team. Zhuo Xiaoduo frowned and said, one team. Oh, I'm not interested in which family Yu Yin is from. What I care about is Li Zhongming's family in the future. Zhuo Xiaoduo said, so the two of them will be in the same team. Hearing this, Li Qinglong's eyes suddenly lit up. Then, he thought for a while and said in a low voice, okay, then it's decided. Soon after, he muttered to himself for a long time and said, in this way, basically, Hidden Dragon, Dragon Soul, Yin Duan, Jade Sun, and the other great martial experts will have leaders on our side. We can recruit and buy horses at any time to expand our forces. Each of these big guys has enough strength to convince the masses. So Xiaoduo pondered for a while and said, how many people are there now? Yumi, Long Yuxing, Wan Lixiu, Li Zhongming, Yin Yu Moyan Gao, Xiao Xiang Chong, Xiang Bing, Pai Bao. Li Qinglong calculated and said, a total of 11 people. Consider putting Dugi Yin in Yu Moyan's team. Okay, then for the time being, 12 people. Li Qinglong said, but these 12 people are still only temporary. Even if it's the 6 of us, if there's any unsuitable situation, we'll still have to remove them. So Xiaoduo sighed softly, I hope not. As for the other students, I'm also drawing up a list, but it's basically impossible to reach the status of the 12 people. It's impossible in this lifetime. Li Qinglong said honestly. That's okay. For the time being, it's better to have nothing than to have something substandard. Then you should know what we've discussed. I'll continue to investigate the others. Let's set Ning K as the basis. Li Qinglong heaved a sigh of relief. Okay, Swollen, Ask these 12 people to report what kind of weapons they use, their specifications, sizes, and styles. Okay. Li Chenglong didn't ask for the reason and directly agreed. Then he notified each of them. Zhou Xiaoduo returned to his room and lay on the bed. He slowly went through the 11 people one by one in his mind. Xiang Bing, Xiang Chong, Li Chenglong. So Xiaoduo muttered in his heart. Long Yuxing, Wan Li Xiu, Yu Moyan, Gao Qiao, and Pai Bao. Swollen's forces can be considered a large branch of my bloodline, but should be fine, especially those few female compatriots. They're all taken, so I believe there won't be any chaos. If they're taken, it'll add unnecessary trouble to the group. Should I join the Nyan Cat? So Xiaoduo thought about it again, and finally decided not to join the Zhuxianyan. Zhuxianyan was the leader of the group. If she joined his group, he was afraid that her leadership skills would be destroyed. Because Xiaoduo knew Zhuxianyan's temper too well. This girl could actually do anything, but as long as she was with him, she didn't think about anything else. Everything was decided by him. This was a bad habit that he had cultivated since he was young. There's a possibility that. I can't say that it's impossible. Even if I don't have this intention, no one can say for sure what kind of influence the Xiang clan will have in the end. The drama of being the emperor of the Xiang clan will never be outdated. However, as long as I'm strong enough, there won't be any problems. So Xiaoduo took a deep breath and analyzed the temperament of each of these people again. No problem. But Meng Zhangjun and the rest of the people stationed in the military shop. What kind of orientation do they have? So Xiaoduo had a good impression of these people, whether it was the first time or the long term. They were hardworking enough, talented enough, and most importantly, obedient enough. They could be independent when they went out and obedient when they came in. They were all Zhou Xiaoduo's ideal talents. But Li Chenglong objected. There must be a reason. Swollen wouldn't reject talents. Chapter 851. Zhou Xiaoduo pondered. From Li Chenglong's words, it seemed like there was something that he didn't know about, which caused the two sides to have an irreconcilable disagreement. It seemed like he had to find out more. What was going on? But that night, Zhuxianyan was still in the space of the Tower of Emptiness. With the help of the supreme gray jade of astral souls and the spirit-snatching sword, she forcefully broke through the ultimate cloud peak and became a god-reigning realm cultivator. When she broke through, it was 6 o'clock in the morning outside. At the moment of the breakthrough, Zhuxianyan clearly felt that his godly thoughts seemed to have come back to life. It was a strange feeling similar to suddenly realizing that I am alive. In short, it was a very strange feeling. Zhuxianyan also had this kind of feeling for the first time. So this is what my soul is like. She had long heard that humans had souls. However, after cultivating for so long, this was the first time she realized that humans really did have souls. At this moment, a feeling of, even if I die, my soul will still exist grew in her heart. Of course, this was an illusion. However, it was so clear and real. Zhuxianyan meditated in the space of the Tower of Emptiness for another half an hour before she came out. Following her breakthrough, Xiao Zhao's body was also emitting cold air. Her body had become much more solid. The tip of the sword was stuck in the ice. In less than half an hour, the pure cold air in the ice had merged with the sword and became part of the sword. The spirit-snatching sword automatically flew up and stuck in another large piece of ice. The original piece of ice was already covered in cracks and turbid colors. Its surface was also slowly melting. Apparently, the essence was gone and the ice was no longer pure. The remaining part was about to return to heaven and earth. Xiao Duo's side. Master's strength was still too weak. If he reached the Skysoar realm or the Dao fusing realm, he would be able to suppress and accumulate his strength. She would be able to compete with that old foe of hers right now. She was still weak. However, she was much luckier than that old foe. At least there was no limit to Master's development. That old foe's master had obviously reached a huge bottleneck and was unable to advance any further. When Xiaoduo saw Zhuxianyan again, he couldn't help but be stunned. Zhuxianyan, who had broken through to the god-reigning realm, was still immersed in that transcendent realm. So Xiaoduo looked at her. It was like looking at the moon in the water or flowers in the mist. It was indescribably ethereal and indescribable. Was indescribably ethereal, and yet it was indescribably illusory. It was as if the beauty in front of him was right in front of him. He could reach his touches. It was a kind of extreme ethereal beauty that could emit a peerless magnificence that was unimaginable in one's imagination. SSSSSSS. Zhou Xiaoyan was awakened by his words. Hers brought her back to reality. She frowned and said, "Nonsense." Zhou Xiaoduo immediately felt that Zhou Xiaoyan was back. He heaved a sigh of relief. Then he said with some lingering fear, "I felt your aura as if it was above the clouds. Is this the God-reigning realm?" Zhou Xiaoyan nodded happily. She put her hands behind her back and puffed out her chest. She said proudly, "What do you think? Amazing." Zhou Xiaoduo gave her a thumbs up. "Really good breasts. So fierce." Zhou Xiaoyan was curious. "Are they fierce?" "Yes." Zhou Xiaoduo was drooling. Breasts that reached the clouds. Zhou Xiaoyan thought for a while and then understood. She was furious. "Little dog, you're courting death." Then she fixed him again. With Zhou Xiaoyan's assessed strength, beating up Zhou Xiaoduo was like child's play. She could fix him however she wanted. After a short while, Li Qinglong sent the information of the 11 people's weapon styles, types, weights, and other information. Zhou Xiaoduo took it and went to Wu Taijiang. "Uncle Wu, I'll have to trouble you with this." Wu Taijiang frowned. "Put it aside first. I still need to wait here. The temperature is not up yet. Don't go out in the afternoon. Wait at home. With the current situation, I'll probably need your help." "Understood." Zhou Xiaoduo agreed obediently. Wu Taijiang looked at the eternal star stone next to him and took a deep breath. It was indeed a legendary casting material. Perhaps this would be the most difficult challenge in the history of casting in his life. In the afternoon, Wu Taijiang was sweating profusely. The backyard of the villa, which was hundreds of meters wide, was covered in a fiery red color. In the middle, it was as if magma was surging. However, the eternal star stone stood in the middle of the blazing white flames, motionless. Although it was not completely unchanged, it was only slightly reddish. This change could not be said to have no effect at all, but the effect was minuscule, very minuscule. Zhou Xiaoduo stood quietly at the side and waited. Zhou Xiaoyan was here too, but her body was too incompatible with the environment. If she did not resist, her body would not be able to bear it. Once she resisted, the Moon Sutra would be activated and the extreme cold air would reduce the heat to a certain extent. If she forced herself to stay here, not only would she not be of help, she would only be a hindrance. Therefore, she could only leave and enter the Void Extermination Tower to cultivate and consolidate her current state. Pay attention. If I tell you to increase the fire, use all your strength to activate the second layer of the Flaming Sun Sutra. Inject energy into the spiritual source so that the center will continue to heat up. Do not interrupt. Understood. Wu Taijiang took a deep breath and suddenly roared. The muscles all over his body tightened, and his two hands suddenly changed. They became 4 to 5 times thicker in an instant. With a clap of his hands, sparks flew and his entire arm turned red. In the center of his palm, a pure white heat suddenly appeared. It fiercely spurted out and forcefully injected into the spiritual source. In an instant, the heat in the furnace increased more than twofold. The unprecedentedly hot light even shot uncontrollably up to 1,000 meters in the air. Wu Taijiang's face was resolute. His eyes stared unblinkingly at the imperishable stone in the center of the furnace. The imperishable stone went from being slightly red at the beginning to becoming completely red, and there were signs of it becoming transparent. However, it still did not show any signs of disintegration. Wu Taijiang felt a wave of helplessness in his heart. Even if it was imperishable iron or 1,000 fantasy gold, it would have already turned into molten iron. However, this imperishable stone was still stubbornly refusing to disintegrate. It was really fucking tough. as expected of a legendary magical object. However, if it could not even break down the particles, it would be impossible to completely melt it and use it. Increase the fire. Wu Taijiang roared. Following this roar, his face suddenly turned red. His heart's blood was stimulated, and it instantly reached the tip of his tongue. Xiaoduo roared, and the flaming Sun Sutra's power, which had already reached its peak, burst out to the maximum. It madly poured into the spiritual source. At the same time, Wu Taijiang roared again. He opened his mouth, and a stream of red blood rushed into the furnace and sprayed directly on the imperishable stone. Finally, the arrangement of the particles of the imperishable stone loosened and changed. Continue, don't stop. Wu Taijiang roared again, and another mouthful of blood was spat in his mouth. He had already raised his sledgehammer. The sledgehammer's head shone with brilliant starlight. He suddenly hammered down, and although the imperishable stone had changed, it still maintained its original appearance. He fiercely smashed it down on the imperishable stone in the furnace. The strength of this hammer was ingenious to the extreme. It was clearly an extremely violent force that smashed onto the imperishable stone, and the destructive force brazenly entered. However, when it hit the bottom of the imperishable stone, it immediately disappeared. It was as if he was continuously waving the sledgehammer in the furnace, but not a trace of his strength leaked out and affected anything else. Zhou Xiaoduo operated the Flaming Sun Sutra with all his might and looked at Wu Tiejiang's superb hammering technique. His heart was filled with endless shock. Originally, after Zhou Xiaoduo obtained the various hammering techniques of the Flood Witch, he felt that he had mastered all the hammering techniques in the world. The rest were mediocre and were not worth mentioning. However, at this moment, the hammering technique that Wu Taijiang was using was another kind of technique, and it was even more exquisite to Zhou Xiaoduo. The hammering technique that Wu Taijiang was using was the true hammering technique. This hammering technique could not be more awesome. For example, a large piece of iron was placed on top of a boiled and peeled egg. However, the pressure of the iron was about to crush the egg. At this time, the hammer would smash the iron block into pieces, but the egg would not be damaged at all, and the iron block would not be intact at all. This was the use of such unimaginable strength. It had an indestructible side, and there was also a side that did not have any unnecessary wear and tear. It was really amazing. So Xiaoduo could not help but gasp in amazement. This hammering technique was really superior to all the other hammering techniques that he had mastered. Yes, this understanding was only because Zhou Xiaoduo's knowledge was shallow. The Flood Witch's hammering techniques were based on tyrannical strength. With the Flood Witch's unparalleled hammering strength, who could stop her? She did not care about the so-called wear and tear. Although Wu Tiejiang's cultivation had reached the peak of this world, he was still far behind the Flood Witch. There were many practitioners whose cultivation and strength were higher than his. If he used the pure, fierce hammering technique, he would win if he was stronger and lose if he was weaker. There was no luck. On the contrary, this kind of exquisite hammering technique, which was simple and had minimal wear and tear, was more suitable for him. The Flood Witch and Wu Taijiang, one was more powerful than the other, and the other was far behind. They cannot be compared at all. But then again, Zhou Xiaoduo's cultivation was still shallow. If he used the fierce hammering technique taught by the Flood Witch to deal with an opponent of the same level or a level higher, it was enough to defeat the enemy. However, if he faced a stronger opponent, Wu Tiejiang's hammering technique, which was simple and had minimal wear and tear, was better. This was the fault of Zhou Xiaoduo's cultivation, not the Flood Witch's hammering technique. Zhou Xiaoduo looked as if he had found a treasure. He stared at it without blinking. He saw that the crazy hammering dance seemed to be connected into a line. In a flash, Wu Taijiang hammered 99 times in a row. Taking advantage of the gap, he spat a mouthful of blood into the furnace. With a crash, under Zhou Xiaoduo's dumbstruck gaze, the huge, starry sky, indestructible stone finally collapsed and scattered in all directions, scattering into tiny particles. Every grain was the same size. It was as if a furnace was suddenly filled with the finest sand. Wu Taijiang roared, "Continue, don't stop." Boom, boom, boom. Two smaller, starry sky, indestructible stones were thrown into the furnace. Done in one go. Everything that can be used has been turned into particles. Wu Tiejiang's face was a little pale at this moment. Obviously, he was exhausted. He swallowed a handful of elixirs, turned his head, and said, "Xiao Duo, can you still hold on?" So Xiao Duo had been maintaining a steady output. He laughed and was extremely heroic. "Uncle Wu, don't worry. I have billions of these things." Damn it. Wu Taijiang was speechless. This little bastard almost made him lose his breath with one sentence. But how could he be distracted at this moment? He quickly took a breath and continued to work. For the whole afternoon, when the fifth eternal starry sky stone was turned into particles with a bang, Wu Tiejiang's whole body trembled weakly. The breath that he had been holding suddenly dissipated. He sat on the ground without caring about his image, panting heavily. "Okay, open that mouth over there." As he spoke, he threw a few buckets made of unknown substances over. So Xiaoduo did as he was told. He opened another thin opening on the side of the furnace with one hand. He put the bucket on top, and suddenly, red hexagonal particles poured out of the furnace one by one. In an instant, a bucket was filled to the brim. He hurriedly changed to another bucket. In this way, more than 40 buckets were connected, and no new particles flowed out. Wu Taijiang was still panting heavily as he staggered over. During the smelting process just now, he had almost exhausted all of his vitality. Even now, his heart was still beating so fast that it almost jumped out of his throat. He looked over and heaved a long sigh of relief. It's really the purest eternal starry sky stone. Is there any other explanation? Swiss Xiaoduo was very curious. Although the smelting process had stopped, the temperature of the place had still risen to a shocking level. Wu Taijiang was exhausted and weak. He did not even have the time to answer Zhuoxiao's question. He scrambled out of the room. Although Zhuoxiao's actual cultivation base was much lower than Wu Tiejiang's, the flaming sun scripture that he cultivated was extremely resistant to the extreme heat. Although he felt uncomfortable, it was not to the extent that he could not withstand it. He could even use this place to improve his cultivation. Without further ado, Zhuoxiaoduo activated the flaming sun scripture's heart sutra and began to reverse the flow of heat. With the experience of the heart of the scorching sun in the past, this operation could be said to be a walk in the park. 2 hours later, the surrounding temperature slowly dropped. After a while, the temperature had basically returned to normal. After adjusting his breathing, Wu Taijiang had already carried the 43 buckets of eternal starry sky stone particles out. He had already prepared a large pool outside. Wu Taijiang opened the villa's water supply valve and turned it to the limit. Water rumbled and poured into the pool. The pool immediately overflowed and began to flow out. However, with a whoosh, Wu Taijiang poured the first bucket of eternal starry sky stone particles into the pool. The few hundred cubic meters of clear water instantly evaporated into steam and rose into the sky like a mushroom cloud. The water supply valve was turned on at full power. It still took a few minutes for the pool to start filling up again. The pool water was still boiling and evaporating. Under Wu Tiejiang's command, Xiaoduo poured a bucket of eternal starry sky sand into the pool as soon as the pool was full. Then the entire pool of water instantly evaporated over and over again. This cycle repeated over and over again. So Xiaoduo wanted to ask Zhuoxiaoyan to come out and help, but Wu Taijiang stopped him. "That won't do. Little Nyenner's freezing cold energy is very high quality. Once the freezing cold energy comes into contact with the eternal starry sky sand, it will easily collapse. Once that happens, the eternal starry sky sand won't be able to melt anymore. It's better to use the most ordinary water to lower the temperature and not mix any spiritual energy with it. It's better to use all the heat generated by the spiritual source to better proceed to the next step." Left without a choice, Duo could only pour water over and over again and again and again. That day and night, the entire hidden Dragon High Marshall Villa district was completely cut off from the supply of clean water. All the gates were closed, and the water supply was fully supplied to Xiaoduo's villa. Not to mention anything else. When all the eternal starry sky sand was laid on the bottom of the pool and the water had returned to its normal cold temperature, so Xiaoduo estimated that the water bill was about tens of thousands of yuan. It wasn't an exaggeration. It was such a huge consumption. The reason why he said it wasn't exaggeration was because there was a real exaggeration. The sky above Fenghai was unprecedentedly full of water vapor, and it began to rain. Then, as the cold air blew over, the raindrops turned into snowflakes halfway through, fluttering in the air. It was very beautiful. The pool was more than 100 square meters, and its depth was 3 meters. It had been evaporated countless times. Now, standing at the edge of the pool, one could only see the rippling blue waves. At the bottom of the pool, the twinkling stars were simply dazzling. Xiaoyan also came out and stood at the edge of the pool with Xiaoduo. Looking down, she couldn't help but be dazzled. It's so beautiful. The rippling clear water in the pool sparkled like mysterious stars blinking. Such a scene was simply unimaginable, and it couldn't be described with words. Xiaoduo fell in love with it at first sight. When the world is peaceful, the villa where Nian and I live in seclusion will definitely have a pool like this. No, the area will be more than 100 times bigger than this. The bottom will be covered with eternal starry sky sand. When the time comes, Nian and I will swim in it. Swim. Nude swimming. Hee hee. Xiaoduo couldn't help but daydream, and the corners of her mouth were already sparkling. Wu Taijiang had already recovered. Taking a breath, he scooped up a handful of eternal starry sky sand and placed it in the palm of his hand. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. It's so beautiful. The eternal starry sky sand in Wu Taijiang's hand was about the size of a grain of rice. They were neatly arranged in the shape of a 6-pointed star, crystal clear and entirely blue. Every surface reflected the dazzling stars. With a casual move, the eternal starry sky sand shone layer by layer. It was magnificent. It was really beautiful to the extreme. It was indescribably gorgeous. Xiaoduo came up to him. Uncle Wu, this is the eternal starry sky sand just now? Xiaoduo asked in disbelief. Even though he was the supervisor of the whole process, even though he did it himself, he still couldn't believe it. The originally black and ugly thing was so beautiful and eye-catching after it turned into particles. Who said it wasn't? Wu Taijiang looked at the eternal starry sky sand in his hand fondly and said, "Although I know how to smelt the eternal starry sky sand, this is the first time I've seen the real thing. After smelting and playing with it myself, I'm sure that this thing is really a very strange thing. It's completely made up of the star particles floating in the starry sky. Once the star particles leave the water, they will have a mutual attraction force. Over time, they will reunite and form the eternal starry sky sand one day. This is probably the fundamental reason why it's indestructible." Wu Taijiang sighed. In fact, this thing is not so much a stone as a jade. And it's the kind of crystal jade that no known jade can compare with. It's a naturally formed 6-pointed star. It has been spreading light since ancient times. If the star doesn't die, I won't die. The great Tao will always shine on the starry sky. Wu Taijiang looked at the eternal starry sky sand in his hand and said softly, "Xiaoduo, you don't have to refine your hidden weapon." Oh, Xiaoduo was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood Wu Taijiang's meaning. He stepped forward, took a star stone, and played with it again and again. This thing seemed a little small. Then, Xiaoduo looked as if he had discovered a new continent. The particles of the eternal starry sky sand were small and fragmented, almost no different from rice grains. But its real weight was more than twice the weight of his jade gourd. The feeling of holding it in his hand was not inferior to that of a hidden weapon made of jade. This is a natural hidden weapon. There's no need to refine it. It's like drawing legs on a snake. Wu Taijiang said, no matter how brilliant an immortal craftsman is, it's absolutely impossible to forge a batch of concealed weapons to such a flawless perfection. Every corner of the eternal starry sky, San's natural six-pointed star, is indestructible and difficult to erase. Even any treasured knife or sharp blade is not as sharp as these. The only thing you need to do is to use your own true qi to nourish this stone for a long time, so that it can form a certain degree of connection with you. With the indestructible characteristic of the star everlasting stone, as long as it hits the target, it will certainly be able to produce a terrifying lethality. Even if it misses the target, with the nourishment of the true qi and the self-guiding force of the hexagram, it can be retrieved afterwards. I can guarantee that as long as the particles hit the body, as long as the enemy's cultivation isn't above the flying heavens realm, they will definitely pass through the body. Even if you scatter hundreds of thousands of them on the battlefield, you won't have to worry about losing too many. As long as you hold a handful of starry sky indestructible stones and walk around the battlefield after the battle, you'll be able to recover most of them. Even if it's a sky soar realm expert, with your current cultivation, you might not be able to injure their body. However, once you reach a certain realm, even if they're only slightly injured by the starry sky indestructible stone, they still won't be able to heal the injuries inflicted by the starry sky indestructible stone. Because the injuries inflicted by the starry sky indestructible stone are indestructible and will continue to be damaged. This kind of injury can only be healed by you, because only you can use your starry sky indestructible stone to draw back the starry sky indestructible stone particles that are causing continuous damage. Only by eliminating the culprit behind the continuous damage can the injury be healed. In other words, if the injured person wants to recover, they will have to look for you. Only you can perfectly heal the injuries inflicted by the starry sky indestructible stone. Wu Taijiang sighed softly. This is simply a hidden weapon bestowed to you by the heavens. For such a peerless weapon to fall into the hands of a junior like you, I don't know if it's a blessing or a misfortune. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly lit up. There was actually such a good thing. With this starry sky indestructible stone as a hidden weapon, all the shackles of hidden weapons will completely disappear from your body, unless you encounter an enemy at the level of the 12 great shamans. However, if you reach the same level as them, the power of the starry sky indestructible stone will still exist. Wu Taijiang said, so now, you can consider your name. Nickname. Because under the starry sky, you are the only one. Chapter 852. Zhuo Xiaoduo's face immediately bloomed like a flower. In an instant, he felt that he was unbeatable. He really wanted to put his hands on his hips and ask who else. He was so proud of himself. Suddenly, Zhuo Xiaoduo thought of something and asked, Uncle Wu, I don't doubt the destructive power of the star stone, but the power of the star stone comes from its destructive position. Is it possible to avoid the continuous destruction and even take the star stone's particles as one's own as long as you gouge out the damaged position at the beginning of the attack? Wu Taijiang laughed heartily. You little rascal, your thoughts are very clever, but you still underestimated the power of the star rock. If you directly gouge out the injured body at the beginning of the attack, you can indeed avoid the subsequent damage. But first of all, the power of the star rock is not ordinary. The initial destructive power is already very strong. If you want to gouge out the injured body at the first moment, it will be difficult to do so. As long as there is a slight delay, you will be attacked by the power of the star rock. Second of all, you have so many star rock particles in your hands. Once they are shot out together, how can you dodge? As for the star stone's particles that you said may be taken by the enemy, do you know why I asked you to use your own Jun Yuan to nourish a part of the star stones? The gravity of the star stones also depends on the size of the star stones that you can control. I think, in this world, no one can have a bigger star stone than you. What do you think? Do you have any questions? No matter who has this thing, you only need to walk around him, and it will be absorbed immediately. Zhua Xiaoduo was elated and high-spirited when he heard this. On the other hand, Zhua Xiaoyan was thinking seriously. That's right. If Dogda had such a hidden weapon with a personal mark in the future, he would definitely have a good reputation. He had to think of a nickname that was resounding, artistic, and would sound very elegant and meaningful. But what should she call him? Zhua Xiaoyan was thinking seriously. Child duo, child xiao duo, doggy child. No. Zhua Xiaoyan was thinking. Zhua Xiaoduo and Wu Taijiang were dividing the loot. There are at least 1,000,000 starry sky immortal stone particles in this huge pool. Wu Taijiang looked and said, Xiao Duo, how much do you intend to keep? Zhua Xiaoduo chuckled and said, Of course, Uncle Wu. You'll get it first. The rest will be mine after you get it. It's so simple. Wu Tiejiang's face twisted. Under such circumstances, whoever took it first would be at a disadvantage, because it involved a question of whether they should be embarrassed or not. Actually, Wu Taijiang was overthinking things. No matter whose Xiaoduo took it first, he would never feel embarrassed. This was because these words did not exist in his dictionary. However, since Wu Taijiang was the first to take it, he was destined to not care about his face. No matter what, the table manners couldn't be too ugly. Wu Taijiang sighed. 1 bucket, 2 buckets, 3 buckets. 4 buckets. Zhua Xiaoduo looked at Wu Taijiang, who was still fishing. His cheeks trembled a little. Uncle Wu, are you done? Hearing this, Wu Taijiang almost wanted to hit him. There are 9 pieces in total. We've melted 5, so you still have 4? For big pieces. The 5 melted pieces made a total of 43 buckets of starry sky, immortal stone particles. At first, you said that you would give me 2 pieces, which is 2/5 of the total. But now I've only fished up 4 buckets, which is not even 1/10 of the total. You're already so distressed that you're about to have a spasm. Can you be any more stingy and shameless? Wu Taijiang ignored him with a dark face and continued to fill up the 8th bucket. So Xiaoduo felt his heart was about to break. Uncle Wu, this call was really heart-wrenching. Wu Taijiang ignored him and filled up 10 buckets. For the sake of this starry sky immortal stone, I'll be shameless today. I must fill it up. Even 10 buckets are less than 2/5 of the total. I should have filled up 17 buckets, however. He saw Zhua Xiaoduo and Zhua Xiaoyan looking at him pitifully. It was an expression that looked like they were about to cry. Forget it. You're really the children of your father and mother. I believe it now. Like father, like son. I'm a bastard, a bastard. No matter how thick-skinned Wu Taijiang was, he couldn't pretend anymore. 10 buckets it was. These were more or less enough. There was still a lot left. By the way, you must always have water in your space ring. Use water to separate them. Just soak them in the water. Wu Taijiang reminded him, don't forget this. Otherwise, they will quickly gather together and become a piece of starry sky, immortal stone again. The starry sky, immortal stone that has been refined by us won't turn into particles so easily. Understood. Zhua Xiaoduo had already made a big bathtub in the space-destroying tower. After a little more processing, these particles could be thrown in. But now, he still had to forge weapons for his team. This group of people had similar basic needs. Most of them used swords and sabers. Only Xiang Chong and his sister's Overlord halberd required slightly more materials. Also, Li Chenglong needed an extra saber, and Yin needed a pair of water-splitting thorns. To Wu Taijiang, these were not difficult at all. It was almost as easy as lifting a finger. To him, the only key was to integrate the particles of the starry sky immortal stone on the surface. This step was the most crucial. Now, Zhua Xiaoduo was already satisfied. He had everything he wanted. It even exceeded his expectations. Wu Taijiang rested and prepared a few bottles of elixirs. He even pressed a few elixirs under his tongue. Only then did he start the furnace again. Chapter 853. I have a... Wu Taijiang looked at the furnace as if he had seen a ghost. What? What's going on? Zhua Xiaoduo blinked innocently. What? What do you mean what's going on? Wu Taijiang pointed a finger at Zhua Xiaoduo's forehead, causing him to tumble down. Don't pretend to be confused. There are only two of us here. If it's not me, then it must be you, or at least it has something to do with you. I'm not pretending. Zhuo still had an innocent look on his face, refusing to admit it even if he was beaten to death. Wu Taijiang had a look of disdain on his face towards such a lazy bastard. He turned to examine the furnace carefully and was delighted. The residual heat accumulated on the furnace over the years was all gone. Now the furnace looked as if it was newly built. You've helped me by removing the heat like this. Why don't you dare to admit it? Wu Taijiang snorted. Zhuo didn't believe it. Taking away so much heat was actually considered as helping? You must be lying to me that you must be fishing. You're waiting for me to admit it before settling the score. I'm too familiar with this trick. Uncle Wu, you don't look like a simple person, but you're quite scheming. You must be dreaming. Don't you know this kind of unorthodox trick? Your nephew, am an expert. How can I be fooled like this? I really didn't smoke. It's fine if you didn't smoke. Wu Taijiang didn't pursue the matter. He pressed Zhuo's shoulder and said earnestly, "That crow of yours. Don't appear in front of others." Zhuo squinted his eyes. That crow, it's very likely that it has the bloodline of the ancient three-legged golden crow. Wu Taijiang sighed. I really don't know where your luck comes from. You can even meet such a good thing. It even recognized you as its master. God is really blind. But before your strength grows, you must never expose it. You just have to remember this. It's fine if the people from Astral Soul see it, but if word gets out and it falls into the ears of the Umno Alliance and the Tao League, then you and your crow will be lucky if you can survive for more than 3 days. Wu Taijiang patted him on the shoulder. After sending the telepathic message, he stood up. Yes, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for your guidance, Uncle Wu. Zhuo felt a chill in his heart. Yeah, I've already finished what I need to forge on your side. Even the furnace has cooled down. Even the heavens are chasing me away. Wu Taijiang was a little reluctant. I'm leaving tomorrow. What about the unmelted starry sky, indestructible stones? Can someone melt it for you if you walk over there? Zhuo asked worriedly. Do you think you're the only one who cultivates the extreme flame cultivation body? There are a few people who are good at it in this world. When you get there, there'll be many masters. It won't be difficult to find a few people to help you, whether it's to stimulate the extreme heat or to catalyze it with vital essence. I don't think you'll need me to spit out my essence blood to ignite it. Wu Taijiang smiled. I don't have enough materials now. When I get there, I'll find time to help you forge a 40-meter-long broadsword. I'll give it to you the next time we meet. I know. Thank you, Uncle Wu. Don't mention it. Wu Taijiang felt a little disappointed, but more than that, he felt proud. He smiled. Most of the weapons I forged today are made of 1,000 fantasy gold, heavenly witch copper, indestructible iron, and starry sky silver. There are also starry sky indestructible stones as supplements. If I'm not wrong, these weapons, perhaps in the future, won't be simple. Wu Taijiang felt the pull in the dark, and a smile appeared on his face. This is my tribulation and also my fate. I don't know how much blood these weapons I forged will drink in the future. This is my fate, but these weapons I forged may also bring me luck. It's also my fate. Xiao Duo, seize the time to cultivate, especially your hammering technique, the Tao of Yin and Yang, your sword technique, the hammering technique, the technique of weight and weight. These are the things you need to target the most in the future battles between masters. Yes, give me some wine tonight. Let's have a drink together. I'll leave early tomorrow morning. Okay. That night, Xiao Duo and Wu Taijiang got drunk. Li Qinglong accompanied them for a while, and then left on the pretext of going out to look for Xiangbing. It wasn't that Li Qinglong was rude. It was that a small circle had been formed. Li Qinglong was the second in command. In terms of influence and strength, he could vaguely threaten Xiao Duo. The only one, although Xiao Duo didn't care, Li Qinglong had to pay attention to the propriety. At this time, it didn't matter to Xiao Duo and Li Qinglong if they didn't pay attention. But sometimes a little carelessness could easily make the brothers below think of something. So Li Qinglong left. The relationship with the boss was the relationship with the boss. If he needed help, he could ask the boss for help. Then he could ask Uncle Wu for help under the boss's name. But he couldn't rashly go up to him to make friends. This was the proper way to get along with each other. It was often seen that someone introduced his brother to his friend, and then the two of them got to know each other passionately and left the person who introduced them aside. This was an extremely immature behavior. It was also an extremely selfish behavior that was especially despicable. Living in this world and interacting with others, it was fine to be at the bottom most of the time. However, once one reached a certain height, a single misstep, a single lack of consideration or attention could cause one's body to be stained with an indelible stain. Once one was overturned, one would be consigned to eternal damnation. He converted all his spiritual power into the purest power of the Flaming Sun scripture before breaking through. This was very important. Zhuo Xiaoduo was not worried at all about the level of cultivation. Even if Li Chenglong and the others had broken through to the God-reigning realm, Zhuo Xiaoduo would not be worried, because he knew what he was doing. Uncle Wu, you worry too much. Zhuo Xiaoduo breathed deeply in the air of the Tower of Destruction. It was only here that he could confide in himself. Li Chenglong will never be a threat to me. Never. Zhuo Xiaoduo smiled. He was very confident about this. But confidence did not necessarily mean that there was no consideration. Just like when he first came to Feng Hai, Vanilla Orchid sounded him out. You don't know how afraid of death I am. I'm very cautious. Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed and took out all the resources he had prepared. He directly used a piece of jade of astral souls and began to cultivate and absorb. The spiritual power in his dantian became restless. Chapter 854. Zhuo Xiaoduo tried his best to compress it. As time passed, the fiery red clouds in his dantian continued to rise, swirl, and disappear. There was an endless supply of them. Under Zhuo Xiaoduo's best efforts, the spiritual energy gradually reached the point where it could no longer be compressed. However, Zhuo Xiaoduo continued to circulate the spiritual energy rapidly in his meridians. In his palms, he continued to absorb the spiritual energy into his body. Under this cycle, Zhuo Xiaoduo gradually felt his dantian swelling like a ball. He could clearly feel that after one or two more cycles, his dantian would not be able to bear the burden and explode with a bang. However, Zhuo Xiaoduo was already very familiar with this feeling and state. He was already very familiar with it. He did not panic at all. Instead, he guided the spiritual energy and began to break through. The barrier of the cloud transformation realm could not withstand a single blow from the surging spiritual energy like a tsunami. There was almost no room for resistance. It rushed through as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It was also at this moment, Zhuo Xiaoduo could clearly feel that the cloud in his dantian seemed to have a little connection with his sea of consciousness. It was just a little bit. Zhuo Xiaoduo could guarantee that among all the warriors who had broken through to the cloud transformation realm since ancient times, there were only a few who could notice this. This little change was too subtle, and the duration was too short. It was not fleeting, nor was it passing by in a flash. It was just a momentary movement. With just a touch, it disappeared. However, Zhuo Xiaoduo was certain that his spiritual energy, or rather, the core of the golden elixir in his dantian, had already connected with his spiritual energy. There must be a connection between them. However, the connection was too weak and difficult to detect. This should be the connection that Nianmao mentioned. I can't believe that I could sense it when I just broke through to the cloud transformation realm. However, this should be a good thing, an opportunity. Zhuo Xiaoduo sensed it carefully. However, other than that moment, he could not feel it anymore. He could only keep in his heart and guess silently. After breaking through in an instant, the fiery red clouds had a lot of room to maneuver and traveled rapidly in his meridians. Zhuo Xiaoduo could clearly feel it. It was as if a hurricane was blowing in the autumn sky. Clouds were being blown away by the strong wind, and the cycle was repeating itself. It's indeed a different feeling. Is this the cloud transformation realm? After carefully analyzing it for a while, with a soft bang, his body suddenly dissolved into a cloud of mist that scattered in all directions. Then, the cloud of mist gathered together to form his own appearance. I see. The Xiaoduo understood. The body doesn't truly disappear, but at this moment when the clouds and mist rise, the body suddenly turns into energy. So there's a kind of temporary invisibility that suddenly assimilates with the clouds and mist. Actually, the body doesn't turn into clouds and mist. When he saw the cloud transformation realm fight, some people used this move to confuse the enemy and create a sense of mystery. So Xiaoduo had always been envious. However, when he reached this stage, he realized that it was not mysterious at all. In fact, it was very boring. This was because in this short moment of assimilation, a large amount of spiritual energy would be consumed. In Zhuo Xiao's opinion, it was not worth it. It's fine if it's used to show off in front of people of lower realms. However, if it's used in a real battle, it's not advisable. At the very least, I'll politely decline. Zhuo Xiaoduo muttered to himself. Zhuo Xiaoduo laughed and said, "If you really like him, Grandma, sure. I'll use my connections to see if I can invite this star to come over and talk to you. I think if you want to meet him, he will be happy to meet you." This was not a difficult thing for Zhuo Xiaoduo. Grandma sure laughed and said, "If there is a chance, it will be good to meet him." That face had appeared in her dreams for many years, but she had never seen it in reality. It was rare that this actor looked so similar. "Yinfeng, are you okay over there?" She turned her head and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan lovingly. She was a little envious, but more than that, she was kind and expectant. She said softly, "Xiaoduo, little Nyener, you two children are so good. If Grandma sure can see the day you two get married, how good would that be?" She looked at the two with longing eyes and sighed softly. "If I can see that day, Grandma sure will have no regrets in her life." So Xiaoduo laughed and said, "Grandma sure, you will definitely see it, because you will be a distinguished guest on that day. As long as you're willing to come, I will personally come and pick you up." As he said that, he moved his eyes away from the TV and glanced at Grandma Sher's face. All of a sudden, Zhuo Xiaoduo's body shook violently, because on Grandma Sher's face, he saw an extremely strong aura of death. This kind of aura of death was already a sign of death. It had been completely formed and was so strong that it formed the gate of hell. Zhuo Xiaoduo's hands trembled and the vegetables in his hand fell to the ground. How could this be? Since he had arrived at Qianlong, Zhuo Xiaoduo could not see the fate of Grandma Sher and others because of his insufficient cultivation. He could only use methods such as reading words and aura to roughly see. Now, Zhuo Xiaoduo had broken through the level of Huayan. His real strength was higher, but he could already see it. But he had never thought that he would see death at the first glance, intentionally or unintentionally, an unsalvageable death. This kind of death was even more hopeless than the death of Zhuo Xiaoyan's Phoenix Pulse soul. It was hard to be lucky. Zhuo Xiaoduo's heart shook violently. He turned his head subconsciously and looked at Zhuo Xiaoyan again. He saw that Zhuo Xiaoyan's face was also covered in black aura. Zhuo Xiaoduo did not believe it and turned his head to look at himself in the mirror. He was also covered in black aura and dark clouds. It was impossible for the three of them to have such bad luck. There must be a reason. Zhuo Xiaoduo was shocked and immediately threw out 2 drops of luck points. One drop was thrown to Grandma Sher and the other to Zhuo Xiaoyan. At the same time, 2 pieces of news appeared in his mind. Yu Jiren, the Dao League attacked tonight. She died in battle to protect Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo. Zhuo Xiaoyan, seriously injured by the Dao League attack. Zhuo Xiaoduo screamed. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. His face was as pale as paper, and he stood up immediately. "What's wrong?" Zhuo Xiaoyan looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo gently. "We have to leave here immediately. Something big is going to happen." Zhuo Xiaoduo said urgently, "Sister Nian, where's Mom and Dad's jade pendant? It's the jade pendant that can only be used in a life and death situation. Take it out quickly. Zhuoxianyan did not understand, but because of her trust in Zhuoxiaoduo, she did not hesitate and took the jade pendant in her hand. What happened? Grandma sure held a handful of coriander in her hand and looked at Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxianyan in surprise. She frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" "There's a strong enemy attacking. The three of us have death aura on our faces. Disaster is coming." Zhuoxiaoduo broke out in cold sweat. Was it too late? On the TV, Shi Yunfeng's team had already entered the UMNO Alliance's encirclement. The UMNO Alliance's commander had a vicious look in his eyes. He waved his hand and said, "Attack. Annihilate them." With a loud bang, countless UMNO Alliance troops suddenly appeared from the ambush. A fierce battle broke out. The Astral Souls troops fell into an unprecedented crisis and suffered heavy casualties in an instant. There's an ambush. The front and rear troops switch positions. Retreat. On the TV, the commander did not panic at all and quickly gave the order. Everyone was moving. The original vanguard instantly turned into the rear troops, charging forward fiercely, while the rear troops turned around and quickly retreated. At this moment, Shi Yunfeng's masked figure in black suddenly showed a speed that was much faster than the others. He rushed forward abruptly, without hesitation. "Grandma Shi, let's go." Zhuoxiaoduo grabbed Grandma Shi's hand. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion. It came from above, from the 9 heavens. It almost coincided with the sound of the battle on the TV. It was as if the gods and demons had descended to the world. The extremely tyrannical attack bombarded the sky above Fenghai City. The entire Fenghai City began to tremble. Countless skyscrapers collapsed in an instant. Boom! The sky curtain that had always been tightly protecting Fenghai City shattered like a fragile mirror in the face of this shocking blow. High up in the sky, the Fenghai City consecrator who was trying his best to maintain the stability of the sky groaned. His body went limp and blood gushed out of his mouth. He used all his remaining strength to sound the alarm before his body fell from the sky. The sky rippled for a moment before it completely shattered. The countless meteors that had been blocking the sky came crashing down like a torrential downpour. In just a few seconds, Fenghai City was plunged into unprecedented chaos, for demon-like figures suddenly appeared high up in the sky. In a flash, they had already arrived above the Hidden Dragon High Marshal Villa District. It was these 4 people who had shattered the sky with one blow and entered the sky above Fenghai City. The sky that protected millions of lives was like a chicken or a dog in the hands of these 4 people. It could not withstand a single blow and was easily broken. After breaking the sky, they directly tore through space and descended above the Hidden Dragon High Marshal Villa District. They had already seen Zhuoxiaoduo and the other 2. Dense mist floated in the hands of the 4 people at the same time. They shouted in a low voice, "Space lock!" They attacked at the same time. In all directions of Fenghai City, millions of alarms sounded desperately. The situation was extremely chaotic. At this moment, Zhuoxiaoduo, who was running outside with Grandma Shi and Zhuoxianyan, suddenly felt that he could not move. The surrounding space was like an iron wall, binding his entire body. It was not only him. Even Grandma Shi and Zhuoxianyan had the same feeling. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 855. Jade Pendant. Zhuoxiaoduo could no longer shout. He could only look at Zhuoxianyan anxiously. The 2 of them unleashed their full strength at the same time. However, they could only use the last bit of strength they had to crush the jade pendant in their hands. For figures descended from the sky at lightning speed. They were dressed in black and had their faces covered. The moment they arrived, they sealed the entire space. This space was cut off from the rest of the abundant sea realm. They also sealed off the 3 people who were running below. The 4 of them had a very strange look of determination in their eyes. It was a kind of heroism that was akin to martyrdom. Without making a sound, a strong wind whistled as they descended from the sky. The aftermath of the wind caused Zhou Xiaoduo's villa to collapse. Grandma Shi's eyes were filled with shock. That was because she could tell that the four of them were all Skysoar Realm cultivators from the moment they made eye contact. Moreover, they were all peak Skysoar Realm cultivators. The purpose of their trip was obviously for the sake of the siblings, Zui Xiaoyan and Zui Xiaoduo. They were only here to do this. But why? In the blink of an eye, the four of them had already arrived in the sky. The strong wind was already approaching them. Their killing intent was directed at Zui Xiaoyan and Wu Yuanlu. At this moment, a wave of energy was emitted from Zui Xiaoduo and Zui Xiaoyan. Two figures, one male and one female, suddenly floated out from the two of them. The light figure suddenly appeared and faced the four people in the sky. The moment it appeared, its eyes were filled with extreme coldness. The two figures had their backs facing Zui Xiaoyan and Zui Xiaoduo. Their faces could not be seen clearly. However, Zui Xiaoyan and Wu Yuanlu were so shocked that they blurted out, "Dad, Mom." The moment Zui Chonglu and Wu Yuding's spiritual clone appeared, the seal on the entire space suddenly lost its effect. Zui Xiaoduo and Zui Xiaoyan had regained their freedom, but they were still in shock as they stared at the sky. In the air, Zui Chonglu casually pushed out a hand. With a cold snort, a giant hand suddenly appeared in the air, directly sending two of the Dao League's high cultivators flying 1,000 meters into the air. On the other side, Wu Yuding also sent the other two people flying with a single palm strike. At this moment, both of them had the same thought. He couldn't fight close to the ground. Although he could kill 4 Skysoar Realm cultivators with a single strike, the explosion of their divine sense before they died would still be enough to affect the surrounding area for dozens of li. Once he went to the extreme, he would cause the people in this area to be plunged into misery and suffering, and the casualties would be incalculable. Not to mention, this was the location of the hidden Dragonheim Martial School. It would only result in greater losses. The instant the 4 Skysoar Realm cultivators were sent flying, Zui Chonglu and Wu Yuding's spiritual clone quickly chased after them. A giant hand swept across the sky, grabbing one of the 4 Skysoar Realm cultivators tightly. The giant hand suddenly tightened, and with a loud bang, that person's head and body exploded into pieces. The remnant of his spiritual origin energy was sent flying into the sky. Among the shattered spiritual origin energy, there were still 3 to 5 tiny strands of divine sense that escaped in all directions. Zui Chonglu snorted and sent out another spiritual origin energy. Instantly, the remnant divine sense that had already fled several thousand meters away was completely destroyed. The spiritual origin energy was completely destroyed, and it couldn't be any more dead. His other hand quickly moved and grabbed another Skysoar Realm cultivator without any resistance, directly grabbing him by the neck. After making a move, they had completed their task and disappeared. The figures in the sky had already disappeared. The 4 Skysoars had turned into clouds and smoke, and Zui Chonglu and his wife had also disappeared. However, the destruction caused by the 4 Skysoar Realm cultivators was still there. The endless meteorites in the sky were still pouring down like a torrential rain. The entire Fenghai city was filled with billowing smoke and dust. Intense rumbling sounds could be heard continuously from all directions. Countless high-rise buildings were smashed into ruins by the meteorites. Countless people were rushing over from all directions. Zui Xiaoduo pulled Zui Xiaoyan and Grandma Shi, saying, let's go. There are still hidden enemies." Grandma Shi was taken aback when she heard that. Suddenly, she gathered all the cultivation in her body. She had already broken through to the mystical realm and could be considered a top-notch expert in Fenghai City. However, the power of the spatial seal created by the 4 Skysoars was too strong. She could only sigh helplessly and was powerless to do anything. As Zui Chonglu and his wife's shadow clone Jade pendant appeared, she regained her freedom just like Zui Xiaoduo. However, she did not let down her guard. When she heard Zui Xiaoduo say that there were still enemies, She had long believed in Zhuo Xiaoduo's qi-gazing technique and made a decision in her heart. At this time, if there were still enemies, then the only one who could help these two children fight for a chance of survival would be her. Then, following a sinister sneer, a black figure suddenly appeared in the sky. The moment he appeared, he fell down like a meteorite. His speed was extremely fast, and his target was Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhuo Xiaoduo. Thief! Yi Changqing and the others were so angry that they were about to vomit blood. The perception of the Hidden Dragon High School's upper echelons changed, and they immediately rushed over from the nearby Hidden Dragon High School. It was a pity that even though they were nearby, the other party had already made plans. His cultivation was exceptionally high. In a flash, he had already arrived in front of Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan. Zhuo Xiaoduo shouted, and the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer, Zhuo Xiaoyan's Spirit Snatcher sword attacked at the same time. Grandma Sure let out a wild howl and also joined in the siege. Boom! There was a loud explosion. The black-clothed man's palm seemed to be mixed with the power of a space-crack vortex. It hit the 9x9 cat hammer forcefully. Zhuo Xiaoduo groaned and spat out blood. His whole body flew out, and the bones in his body cracked one after another. The mighty hammer technique, which was once invincible and powerful, was destroyed by the opponent's palm strength that was several times stronger. It cannot be used at all. The palm hit the Spirit Snatcher sword with a buzzing sound. Ice Spirit Xiao let out a shrill cry, and an extremely strong chill burst out. The cracked vortex spun rapidly like a black hole. Boom! So Xiao Yin let out a muffled groan, and her delicate body was sent flying like Zhuo Xiaoduo, accompanied by the sound of bones shattering. Her cultivation was higher than Zhuo Xiaoduo's, but because her cultivation was higher, the recoil she received was greater, and her injuries were more serious than Zhuo Xiaoduo's. The man wanted to kill the siblings with one palm each. However, he did not expect that after 2 consecutive attacks, although the siblings were seriously injured, he did not kill anyone. He could not help but be stunned. This was far beyond his expectation. What's more, even though his strength was amazing, he was still forced to stop by Zhuo Xiaoduo's sledgehammer, Zhuo Xiaoyan's sword. And it was this pause that Grandma Sher's entire body turned into a gust of wind, rapidly entangling him. Chapter 856. Yu Jiaran. At this most crucial moment, he did not hesitate at all. He directly used the most extreme move to self-destruct, blowing up his own body and shattering Shi Yunfeng's portrait. I will use my most beautiful face to show you that I am with you in life and death. The moment Yu Jiaran self-detonated, Shi Yunfeng's black-robed figure also self-detonated in the movie that was being broadcasted across the continent. The sudden and unimaginably violent explosion caused the masked man in black to let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire body was riddled with wounds from the explosion, and he was even sent flying high into the air by the intense shockwave. He spat out blood from his mouth. However, he was still alive. Grandma Sher's self-detonation was undoubtedly powerful, but the black-robed man was a Skysoar Realm expert. He was an elite Skysoar Realm cultivator, and he was stronger than any of the 4 Skysoar Realm cultivators who had died in Zhuo Chonglu and his wife's hands. Even if the explosion was so sudden, even if he was seriously injured and almost lost half of his life, he still wouldn't die. The black-clothed man's body floated in midair. Many of the wounds on his body were already slowly recovering. Yu Jiaran's self-detonation had paralyzed his body. His bones and muscles were damaged, and even his divine soul was shaken. However, his life was still intact, and his combat prowess was still there. Although he could not move for the time being, the strength of a Skysoar Realm expert was still on full display. The Skysoar Realm was indeed so terrifying that ordinary cultivators would not be able to comprehend it. At this moment, a deafening roar was heard. "Big brother, I'll take my leave now." Cheng Gaing, the vice principal of the Hidden Dragon High School, turned into a bolt of black lightning and soared into the sky. He hugged the black-robed man's battered body. Chung Gang laughed. Today's trip to the Skysoar realm was worth it. Before he could finish speaking, another explosion was heard, and another mushroom cloud rose into the sky. Chung Gang was already at the peak of the profound returning realm, and his cultivation was even higher than Jiaren's. He was only a step away from breaking through to the Skysoar realm, yet he still chose to self-detonate without any hesitation. The black-clothed masked man let out a furious roar. "You dare!" Before he could finish speaking, a loud explosion rang out. In the sky above Qianlong, the most dazzling fireworks bloomed. Chung Gang, the black-robed man, Granny Shi, and Yu Jianren all disappeared at the same time. Yi Changqing desperately rushed into the air and used his hands to search around in vain. Brother. But at this moment, there was nothing left in the air. Not even a piece of debris was left. Yi Changqing's tears rolled down his cheeks. The Skysoar realm was an undying legend to profound conjecture. A single flying heavens was enough to contend against a few hundred Gui Xian soldiers. Even if he was not a match for them, as time passed, he would definitely be able to kill all of these Gui Xian soldiers one by one. This was the tyrannical aspect of flying heavens. Inconceivable endurance, inconceivable vitality, and inconceivable recovery ability. There is only one way for a Gui Xian expert to deal with a Fei Tian, and that was to constantly have Gui Xian experts charge forward and self-destruct at close range after being surrounded by a battle formation. Only then would they have a chance of victory. Under the constant self-detonation, one of them would definitely be able to bring the fairy down with him. And this method was the one that had the least cost. If they did not use this extreme method, everyone would only be slowly slaughtered by the enemy. There was no other possibility. Generally, this was the only way to trap a Skysoar realm expert to death. And right now, Granny Shi and Chung Gang were using this method. One would self-destruct to heavily injure the enemy, while the other would self-destruct to take the enemy away. Yi Changqing and Wen Xingtian were inconsolable. Chung Gang could have survived. He was not the one charging at the front. The ones at the front were Wen Xingtian and Yi Changqing, and Chung Gang was more than a body length behind them. During this process, Wen Xingtian, who was at the front, quickly circulated his meridians and dantian, preparing to self-destruct to attack the black-robed man first. However, Yi Changqing, who was right behind him, sent him flying back with a slap. Following that, Yi Changqing took a step forward and circulated his meridians to self-destruct, taking advantage of the opening to kill the already heavily injured black-robed man. Yi Changqing and Chung Gang both understood that Wen Xingtian was the youngest of their brothers, and his cultivation was also the weakest among them. Even now, he had yet to reach the threshold of returning profound. Because of this, even if they allowed Wen Xingtian to self-destruct, it would not be enough to kill the black-robed man. It would not make any difference, and they would need to sacrifice another person to take the fairy down. Therefore, when Yi Changqing pushed Wen Xingtian back with a palm strike, he rushed forward, clearly intending to use his own life to take the black-robed fairy down. But unexpectedly, at the last moment, Chung Gang grabbed Yi Changqing and threw him back. He rushed forward himself and perished together with the enemy. The three brothers all wanted to use self-detonation to kill the enemy and save the other two. They did not shout any slogans, nor did they talk about any unfinished business. They simply rushed forward and self-destructed. If Chung Gang had said a single word, Yi Changqing would have pulled him back, not giving him a chance to self-destruct. At such a time, there was only the choice to do or not do, not the choice to say or not. There were no unfinished business. Everything would naturally be taken care of by the brothers who were still alive. Unnecessary words would be blasphemous to their brotherhood. Yi Changqing roared into the sky, tears rolling down his face. Wen Xingtian wailed as he looked around for pieces of flesh. Sister Shi, sixth brother Chung. Wen Xingtian could not speak. Grandma Shi, Principal Chung. Zhou Xiaodui's eyes were blurred with tears. He tried his best to get up, but 90% of his bones were shattered, and there was no way he could get up. This was the first time in his life that Zhuo had seen his own family die in front of him. Death was imminent, and there was no more luck. In an instant, the scene from the first time he met Grandma Shi flashed in his mind. "Yours was Zhuo?" A white-haired old lady appeared, looking at him coldly. He brought food to eat with Grandma Shi. Grandma Shi was not willing, but she still ate. The third time that Grandma Shi was always unwilling to eat the food he brought, but her eyes flashed with warmth and relief. That time, Grandma Shi was leaning against the door, looking at him, but when she saw him, she hurriedly turned around. Also, she moved to his villa and the wine that day. Then today, I really want to see the two of you get married." Grandma Shi's voice was filled with longing. Now, this respectable, kind, and pitiful old lady was gone. When she saw that he and Sister Nian were in danger, she did not even hesitate for a second and self-destructed. In the end, she did not even leave behind a sentence. Zhuo's heart was filled with grief, and his mind was shaken. Finally, he could not hold on and fainted. On the other side, Zhuo, who was more seriously injured, fainted even earlier, and her body was covered in blood. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless experts landed. What happened? There was chaos everywhere, and there were countless meteorites in the sky. Big and small, with light, were crazily smashing into Fenghai City. In just a short period of time, more than 1 million people were injured in Fenghai City, and tens of thousands of people died. Moreover, the number of casualties was still increasing and expanding. Someone in the sky shouted, "Quickly request for a Sky Soar Realm expert to repair the sky curtain. Go, go." The moment the sky curtain collapsed, in just a moment, the entire city was blackout, and there was no signal. All communication facilities were paralyzed without exception. Countless experts flew into the sky to resist the meteorites. However, Fenghai City was vast, and although there were many cultivators, it was inevitable that there were still tens of thousands of them. Everywhere was chaotic. 2 hours passed like this. Zhuo slowly woke up and found himself lying on a bed. He hurriedly turned his head and saw Zhuo lying on the other bed, breathing steadily. It was only at this moment that Zhuo felt slightly relieved, but then a huge sadness welled up in his heart. It was a feeling of greater sadness than the day when the old principal, He Yuanyue, passed away. The old principal died because of the exhaustion of his lifespan, so it could be considered a good death. However, Grandma Shi sacrificed herself heroically to save him and his sister. Grandma Shi also said that she looked forward to the future. All of this made Zhuo's heart ache. Grandma Shi. Zhuo choked with sobs. On the other side, Yi Changqing's eyes were swollen, and he was accompanied by several other female teachers. Yi Changqing seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant, and his always tall and straight body was hunched. In a day, he had lost 2 old friends, old comrades. One was his brother, and the other was his brother's widow. At this moment, the sorrow in his heart was even greater than Zhuo's. He said with a hoarse voice, "Your Grandma Shi has already reunited with your Principal Shi." Zhuo's tears flowed out again. He clenched his teeth tightly, not wanting to cry out loud. However, he couldn't help but let out a whimper from his throat, like a wounded beast gasping for breath. 2 clear lines of tears flowed down silently. "Principal, who did this?" Another female teacher asked while clenching her teeth. This hidden dragon sect will definitely take revenge. I swear that I will not rest until I have my revenge." Yi Changqing took a deep breath and said with a hoarse voice, "The 3 corpses left at the scene have already been taken away by the officials. They will inform us as soon as they have the results." A total of 5 Sky Soar Realm experts. Yi Changqing's heart felt like it was about to explode, as he said with hatred. The other party mobilized 5 Sky Soar Realm experts at once, sacrificing all of them just to accomplish this matter. Yi Changqing understood very well. The target of these 5 Sky Soar Realm experts was clear and direct: Zhuo and Zhuo. In order to kill Zui Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan, the other party was willing to sacrifice 5 Skysoar realm experts. What was the meaning of this? What kind of concept was this? What kind of power in this world would be willing to sacrifice 5 Skysoar realm experts at once? The answer was obvious. Chapter 857. It's most likely done by the Alliance, said the female teacher. Yi Changqing's eyes were red. He gritted his teeth and said, although the Alliance has always been our archenemy, they would never do something like this. Zhuo Xiaoduo lay on the bed and felt his injuries recovering quickly. The numbness on his body was getting stronger. He gritted his teeth and said, it's the Dao League. Dao League? Yi Changqing turned his head and looked at Zhuo Xiaoduo. Zhuo Xiaoduo gritted his teeth and said, it's the Dao League. It's the Dao League. There was no way he was wrong about this. There was no way he was wrong about the results he saw with his divination ability. That was the truth, the inevitable truth. Yi Changqing took a deep breath and muttered, Dao League. Dao League. That's right. Since it's not the Alliance, it can only be the Dao League. His eyes suddenly emitted a strong, murderous aura. Then he reprimanded loudly. What does a kid like you know? How dare you say that? Immediately, Zhuo Xiaoduo heard Yi Changqing's voice transmission in his ears. When the investigation team arrives, don't say anything. Just say that you don't know. Zhuo Xiaoduo nodded silently. Yi Changqing was saying this to protect himself. Although he did not know what Yi Changqing was worried about, Zhuo Xiaoduo had complete trust in Yi Changqing. Ever since Zhuo Xiaoduo laid on the ground and saw the 3 Hidden Dragon sect higher-ups fighting to be the first to explode, he felt a sense of belonging to the Hidden Dragon sect. Trust. Just like when he was in Phoenix City, when he was in Second High, there was no difference. No difference. It was also from this moment onwards that Zhuo Xiaoduo was willing to trust Hidden Dragon High School unconditionally. This was his second alma mater. 3rd place. At the side, Zhuo Xiaoyan groaned and woke up. She murmured, Xiaoduo. Zhuo Xiaoduo hurriedly shouted, I'm here. I'm fine. Zhuo Xiaoyan took a deep breath and asked with concern, where's Grandma Sher? Where is she? When Grandma Sher blew herself up, Zhuo Xiaoyan was already unconscious and did not see it. Zhuo Xiaoduo's heart was filled with sorrow as he cried, in order to protect us, Grandma Sher blew herself up. Zhuo Xiaoyan exclaimed, tears streaming down her cheeks. She murmured absent-mindedly, self-explosion, self-destruct. Zhuo Xiaoduo gritted his teeth and said, Nian Mao, don't ever forget that we must avenge Grandma Sher. This hatred must be paid with blood. Revenge. Blood for blood. Zhuo Xiaoyan murmured to herself. Suddenly, an icy aura emanated from Ying Ruo's body. After a long time, Zhuo Xiaoyan said quietly, how is it now? Yi Changqing said in a hoarse voice, now the canopy has been repaired. The enemy's body has been taken away by the officials. It is said that there is nothing to prove their identity. Their faces are completely unfamiliar. I have never seen them before. We can't find any identity information for the time being. 1/4 of Fenghai City has been turned into ruins because of this incident. The number of injured people has not been counted yet, but the number of dead people is at least 2 million. The number of dead people is more than 120,000. This is like a sudden catastrophe, but it was caused by human power. Yi Changqing's eyes were blazing with fire. How do we get here? Where is this? This is the governor's mansion. Both of you are seriously injured. It's good that you can wake up, Yi Changqing said. Zhuo Xiaoduo, get well quickly. Then he said to the 2 female teachers, watch them carefully. I'll go check on them. He turned around and left. Zhuo Xiaoduo was constantly circulating the flaming sun scripture in his body. He also took out various kinds of life liquid from the ring and swallowed them continuously. Zhuo Xiaoyan was doing the same beside him. Neither of them spoke. They were both silent and recovering. Zhuo Xiaoduo took out various rare medicinal powers and even some heavenly treasures. He divided them in half for himself and the other half for Zhuo Xiaoyan. Zhou Xiaoduo had wanted to take out the sky-mending stone to heal quickly, but after thinking about it again and again, he suppressed this tempting idea. As Principal Yi said, there would be an investigation team coming later. If their injuries recovered too quickly and beyond common sense, it would be troublesome. For the time being, it was better to treat them using normal treatment methods. An hour later, Zhou Xiaoduo gritted his teeth and sat up expressionlessly. Although his bones hurt terribly, he didn't want to lie down anymore. If he continued to lie down, Zhou Xiaoduo was afraid that he would go crazy. The spiritual power in his dantian finally connected with the divine sense space and began to circulate slowly. Zhou Xiaoduo's injuries were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other side, Zhou Xiaoyan seemed to have turned into a block of ice. With the help of Xiao Duo, countless pure, icy spiritual energy entered her body and healed her automatically. The two of them only had one thought in their minds: revenge. Then, no matter what, they had to send Grandma Shi and Vice Principal Cheng off. They had to send them off on their last journey. No matter how serious their injuries were, they had to send them off. One was hot and the other was cold. They complemented each other. The two female teachers quietly retreated and turned to stand guard at the door. Their eyes were still filled with amazement. After suffering such serious injuries, they could still circulate their spiritual power and heal themselves after waking up. There were many potions and elixirs. Even as teachers, they had never seen such high-grade goods. The origins of these two young men and women were really extraordinary. At this moment, the outside world was still in a complete mess, just like a tangled mess. Many teachers and students of the Hidden Dragon High School were waiting outside. How is Zhou Xiaoduo? How is Zhou? Yi Changqing returned from outside and shouted coldly. Everyone returned to the school. Vice Principal Liu will preside over the teaching. Liu Yichuan nodded with a sorrowful face and then left with the students. When Xingtian wasn't here, when Xingtian was still desperately searching the battlefield for flesh and blood, in the small house where Grandma Shi lived, he carefully searched for some daily necessities. Yu Jiaran and Cheng Gai's self-destruction was just like Shi Yunfeng's. It was an extreme self-destruction that sacrificed their lives, souls, and everything. It was really a clean explosion. Not even a bone was left. There was no trace of them in this world. However, when Xingtian was unwilling to give up, according to the military rules, as long as there was a drop of the owner's blood or a bit of flesh left in the clothes and the cenotaph, then the owner would be able to occupy the tomb and not be taken over by the wandering ghosts. Cheng Gai was easy to find. He had a family and a business. It was not difficult to find traces of him. But Grandma Shi had been a widow for many years and rarely had contact with the outside world. It was not so easy to find her remains. When Xingtian's expression was like crazy, but his movements were extremely careful and gentle. In the ruins of Grandma Shi's house, when Xingtian carefully dug out the dressing table, the rubbish bin, and the bed, he was searching. Even if he could find a strand of Yu Jiaran's hair, it would be a little bit of sustenance. But there was nothing. The place where Grandma Shi lived was clean and tidy. Finally, he found a white towel under the pillow. There were traces of tears on it. When Xingtian carefully collected the towel, pillow, and bedding. Sister-in-law, I hope that you can reunite with Brother Yinfeng. In the netherworld, the road to the netherworld is long. It will be better if two people accompany each other. When Xingtian's face was full of tears. Your life has been too bitter. I hope that from now on, you won't be bitter and cry. He hoped that she would not cry, but he was heartbroken. Tears kept falling. In Cheng Gai's house, the sky was already shaking. When Xingtian flashed in, "Where's the dungeon?" He went all the way to the dungeon. Here was Shi Yu, the culprit who had been tortured by Cheng Gai until now. Seeing when Xingtian come in, Shi Yu, who was on the verge of death, raised her head weakly and looked at Wen Xingtian. Just as he opened his mouth, he was about to say a few words of schadenfreude. When Xingtian flashed forward, and with a flash of his blade, he had already cut off his tongue. Since Cheng Gai had died, as his brother, Wen Xingtian, of course, had to send this great enemy down. The road to the netherworld was dark. Wouldn't it be lonely for a brother to go down alone? When Xingtian said in a low voice, "Shiyu, it's time to go." Then he cut her tendons and skinned her, cutting her into pieces. She murmured, "Sixth brother, I'll help you. Cut him into pieces. After you go down, you can torture him again. Even in heaven and earth, don't let this bastard go." In the end, when Xingtian turned Shiyu into a pile of minced meat and crushed bones, even her soul was completely destroyed by when Xingtian. "Sixth brother, I'll help you fulfill your unfulfilled wish. Don't worry, there's so many brothers waiting for you down there. You don't have to worry about being lonely. Don't go too far. After you meet up with your brothers, wait for us. We'll be there soon." When Xingtian's eyes narrowed, he murmured, "I really want to go find you now." A day later, Grandma Shi's funeral and Cheng Gaing's funeral were held in two places. Grandma Shi was a woman after all. She was the widow of the Shi family. The funerals of both sides could not be held at the same time. Therefore, the people of Hidden Dragon High School could only be divided into two groups. The people on one side would rush to the other side to pay their respects. Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxiaonian had just recovered from their injuries. They first went to Vice Principal Cheng and respectfully kowtowed 9 times. Then, they went to Grandma Shi's side and sent her off as a filial son. More than 10,000 teachers and students of Hidden Dragon High School came to attend the funeral. There were also many students who had graduated from Hidden Dragon High School. After hearing the news, they came one after another, especially Shi Yunfeng, Yu Jiaran, and the students who had been taught by Cheng Gaing. The funeral was solemn and quiet. Only the mournful music continued. In the afternoon, Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxiaonian sent Grandma Shi and Vice Principal Shi to be buried together. On the empty half of Vice Principal Shi's tombstone, Grandma Shi and Yu Jiaran's names were finally filled in. The husband and wife were finally reunited. On the tombstone, there was a wedding photo of the two. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. Both of them had a happy and sweet expression on their faces. The world's storms and waves no longer had anything to do with the two of them. They just looked at the world peacefully and happily. They had once fought, protected, hurt, and hated this world. No matter how dangerous it was, no matter how turbulent it was. Zhuoxiaoduo and Zhuoxiaonian knelt in front of the tombstone. Their tears fell like rain. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.